Welcome everybody to the Saint Seiya Cosmocast. I'm Ramses, and per usual, I have here Kamen writer Furry,
which is me,
which is you, and of course we have here the walking encyclopedia of Saint Seiya knowledge himself, Venkas.
Hello.
Why did I think you were going to say The Walking Dead? I was like, why are we insulting Benhas today?
No, dude.
I know that I know that I still have that half the time, but
yes,
we have the Walking
Venkas.
Dead Benhas.
I was gonna say Venkas is like we're gonna stretch it out for like 15 more seasons than it should, with like 10 more with like 15 spin-offs. That's a joke about
The Walking Dead. Then we'd be replacing co-host every other week.
Oh god,
that is true.
And then there'll be one season where it's just like it's essentially a bottle season where it's like we have to record everything in a farm.
Oh no,
no,
I watched this.
Hard pass.
All right. Outside of Walking Dead like shenanigans, we have a lot to talk about here in this episode, because as we're ramping up to the live action movie's release, we're starting to get more and more information of the movie's release date, and a little bit more information about like where it's gonna be coming out and stuff like that as well. Also, like when they're gonna start doing presentations and stuff like that as well. So let's start first with something with a little bit of like let's start with something outside of that first. Let's talk about final editions. We know that in most places around the world now, they're trying to get the final editions like being published, especially in Mexico, France, Brazil, and other parts of Italy. They're finally getting those editions out, and we were wondering like when is the next one's coming out, because like they stopped at issue 5, no, actually issue 6, because this is 7 and 8. So they stopped at book 6. And we haven't heard anything about it until some listings came out on came out recently, saying that in sometime in May we're gonna get volumes 7 and 8 of the final editions.
6 and 7.
6 and 7. Okay, never mind. I will eat my. I wish I had my notes. I shouldn't be looking at other things here, but like yeah. 7 and 8, 6 and 7 of the final editions, which is interesting because like it's good to see. It's like now like we were afraid of like it's gonna be so much content that like so much content so quickly, especially in Mexico, where you got 1 and 2 already, and they said that 3's gonna come out in April, but like we're getting stuff more rapidly, and just like it's like I'm pretty sure they're gonna start because of like international international requirements. I think they're gonna start like ramping up a lot of these more releases coming soon. So, Venkas, you're the one that's been collecting these. Like, what are your thoughts on this bit of news?
I'm actually happy. It took a bit longer than I would have expected. I thought, when did the volumes 1 to 5 come out in Japan? I think it wasn't last year. I think it was in 2021.
That's what I'm saying. They came out
so not like we didn't have any news on 2022. So this is kind of like delayed in my eyes. Like I think that another batch of 5 volumes should have come out last year. But at the same time, considering how busy Kurumada has been with everything, I kind of understand. So I'm happy that they have finally announced this. So far, officially confirmed, only volumes 6 and 7 have been announced. But a friend reminded me the other day that they did the same thing when the first 5 volumes came out. I think only volumes 1 and 2 came out first, and then they announced like a later date that same year the other 3 volumes. So hopefully they also announce sometime this year volumes 8, 9, and 10. Yeah. It is confirmed that volumes 6 and 7 will come out in Japan on May the 8th, as well as the 14th volume of Saint Seiya Next Dimension, which comes out on April 7th. So we're very like the let's say that the last chapters that were missing in a recopilatory volume for Next Dimension are going to come out as a full volume at full color, which has revealed like the official colors.
Really cool.
Nice. Yeah, they actually revealed the official colors for some of the characters that was kind of left to interpretation. Amongst them, the incarnation of Athena of that century. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. I think Next Dimension can have its own series of episodes. But yeah, like seeing that is amazing. I'm actually going to get it as soon as I can find somebody selling it on the internet. and getting it from Japan because I actually have the Japanese volumes as well, both
that's
for
really cool.
Next Dimension as well as the final edition.
Yeah, and I find it interesting. Like they're like I find it interesting that they're coming out in May, so it's like the post movie hype.
I think that I did hear somebody say that this is probably kind of like planned, like
Yeah.
in terms of like for marketing. They went into much better detail than I could ever say and explain, but yeah, I think it had something to do with that as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm theorizing. It's like they're capitalizing on like the post movie hype. Like they know like regardless of how it's gonna be how it's gonna do in Japan, and their name's gonna be out there and it's gonna be still being fresh in people's minds either for like nostalgia reasons or people trying to find an alternative if it's not that good. So it's gonna be out there and people are gonna start finding they're gonna start finding different things they're gonna start finding out different they're gonna start seeking out more things out within Saint Seiya to seek out once the movie's out, or they're gonna try to capitalize also too on nostalgia. We're at this point where it's like the nostalgia circle, the nostalgia cycle is like we're starting to get where it's starting to become more apparent. So it's like I'm pretty sure they're gonna start like capitalizing on that with both the movie and like these releases as well. Kamen Furry. I know we're talking like I know we're talking Martian, but like, do you have any thoughts on like on this bit of news?
The covers look gorgeous.
Yeah,
I wish that we would get them.
I'm hoping this too.
Yeah, I know Ben Haas like is real adamant about us like getting some of the Spanish language ones that are going to come out in Mexico. But I'm hoping that we can get them in English just because I'm not confident enough in my Spanish.
Google Translate. You can just point your phone at the page.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, when it comes to Spanish, I understand a lot more than I can regurgitate.
Fair enough.
So I can get the gist of what's going on most likely, and with context clues of it being artwork and stuff. I'm not that worried about it, but it would still be nice to have it in English because I feel like if they were to do that, they would most likely go back and fix some of the complaints that people have, such as like name changes and stuff like that. That is the biggest complaint with the English language release that Viz did. So I feel like they could do very much and like go ahead and get your drinks ready because I'm going to mention Sailor Moon. They can do like Sailor Moon's special edition releases. I think they were called the Eternal edition.
Yeah, the Eternal editions because I remember getting those very first editions when they came out when Kodansha started publishing themselves here in the United States. It was a tough read for me to read those books because they were using a lot of like honorifics. And a lot of honorifics and like the way it was written was very kind of like the translator was kind of like on autopilot. So like a lot of translation was kind of like messing up my brain. It felt like it was kind of like very lazy, the translation. And I heard that these new editions that they just released are vast improvement. I'm like, I kind of want to buy that, especially since there's gonna be one with like a Poke-Q, and I kind of want that. But that's still Moon Sez talk. This is Saint Seiya Cosmocast talk. But finish up your thoughts on these with that thought though.
But yeah, like I mean, and much like they're kind of in the same vein. These editions for Saint Seiya and then the Eternal editions for Sailor Moon, because they have like gorgeous single character covers in this like beautifully rendered art style that's a little bit exaggerated from what you would see in a normal manga panel, and they just look gorgeous. And I would love to have them, in any format that I can get them, of course. But just I'm holding out hope that we're gonna get an English language release of this.
I hope so too.
I hope so too.
Maybe we'll get some news because like we haven't heard a lot of toy news for the movie.
Yeah.
So maybe this is something that they can fill that void with, because really with any movie release, these companies love to start re-releasing stuff. So I'm hoping at the very least, if they want to go the absolute laziest route, just reprint the out of print manga that we already have, just something to revitalize the fandom. But I really think that if they started releasing this specific edition, that would, because they're big, they're eye-catching, and I think that if you were to see these on like a Barnes and Noble shelf, it would really draw in people that have either never heard of Saint Seiya or never given it a chance before.
Yeah,
and start to really, build that community a little bit more.
And I was gonna say, like, one of the things I hope they do capitalize, because like again, it's gonna be that blowback effect of either the post Saint Seiya like release or like the pre-hype for the release of the movie. if depending on when they decide to release the movie here in the United States, because like if they can release it with like before or after the movie is released, it will like there's gonna be eyes on the franchise regardless. Which is another thing. Was like I especially want them to. I think like any company worth their salt right now would be stupid not to capitalize on getting the rights to the series again.
And not to like switch gears too much, but like also recently Sentai, who is the company that has the rights to the new Netflix quote unquote dub, has been doing polls on Twitter and I believe Instagram as well, just saying, hey, which of our releases would you like to see airing on television? Which of our releases would you like to see streaming and that kind of stuff? So if you want to go to their social medias and let them know, that they have it sitting there. They're not doing anything with it. It's not on any platform. It's not airing on any channel. It's literally, if you don't count pirated websites, it's basically a lost dub at this point because there's no physical media for it.
Yeah.
So if you like, this could be another thing that in that same vein of making the old new again by just letting Sentai know that you want them to, put that on Adult Swim or put that on, some streaming website like Hulu or something like that, so that people
I'm trying to find a post because like someone else was also mentioning this recently outside of Sentai Filmwork because I want to say it was the guy who actually runs Adult Swim. I forgot the name of the guy, but he's the one. He's been like involved with like trying to get like rights to like different things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here it is. Okay, so the guy in question is I think it's like Vincent Marco. He's a guy he's VP at he's senior VP at Warner Discovery, and at Warner Discovery's like the Adult Swim department. He's been doing it since like the Toonami days, like the original Toonami back in the 90s. So he think he started doing Space Ghost. He was like one of the guys who started working on that series with him, and that's how they got started with like Toonami.
Yeah, the original Toonami was Space Ghost.
Yeah, because it was like Moltar and all that stuff, But he's been involved like with like the creation of that, and also like the other creations of its spin-off Maguzi, and also the spin-off also of Adult Swim. He's been heavily involved with Adult Swim, and recently he started saying like, "Hey, we're in talks with Sentai Filmworks. What series from Sentai Filmworks would you like to see?" And I'll post a link to that particular tweet there. But yeah, they have the rights, or like they can work out something to get that show on Adult Swim, because like if there's one thing that like that it missed out on, if there's one thing that Saint Seiya missed out on, was getting that Toonami rub. I think if it had that Toonami rub, like a proper dub on Toonami, like back in the days when stuff like Naruto, when the Deep dub was out, like because that was the same time that it kind of dawned on me when I was thinking about it, like it was stacked against I wouldn't say a better dub of Naruto, but it's as close as you're gonna get on TV at the time.
I personally think it would have fared better on Adult Swim because it wouldn't have had to have been as edited down as much, because that was a trend around the same time that the Knights of the Zodiac deep dub was airing on television. There was also this trend of taking older anime and putting them on Adult Swim, but labeling it as like uncut.
Yeah.
And like they did it with Gundam Wing, they did it with Cowboy Bebop, they did it with Yu Yu Hakusho, where they would occasionally say "damn" and there would be some blood, and that was uncut. It was too edgy for Toonami,
Oh, goodness gracious me!
But like I said, like that. So, but nowadays, since now Toonami is part of Adult Swim, they're just airing it uncut, like flat out.
Yeah,
like,
right.
And a lot of shows surprisingly are doing really well for themselves on this iteration of Adult Swim, on Adult Swim Toonami, because Dragon Ball Super, it's like, say what you will about Dragon Ball Super, but like it's a phenomenon everywhere, and thanks to like this huge phenomenon, it's still a lot of people still watch it. Same with One Piece, same with My Hero Academia. I don't see why not. So it's like if you want.
I was gonna say, I think that the biggest problem, I think, I'm sorry that I'm gonna say it like this, but it is from my perspective, and I think a lot of people kind of agree. The thing is, like the US, like so far with the products that have been released so far, they've never been able to like figure out just how to market Saint Seiya. Like they've tried it in the worst possible ways, which has kind of contributed to its, I don't want to say downfall, but like not being able to position itself as a franchise in the US. like the way that they have treated it, like, with the censoring, with the over the top dub at the time, putting it in an age where already more series inspired by Saint Seiya or some of the other Kurumada works already being popular back when it finally aired, like not being able to like grab it on an edge that could grab the attention of people, because
my
I think
God.
personally I think that if for example say, okay, from the creator of Saint Seiya, from the mind that inspired Akira Toriyama, for example, and that can actually be something they can fucking do, because there's an interview with Akira Toriyama where he cites Masami Kurumada as an inspiration for what would become Dragon Ball eventually, when he was still doing Dr. Slump. This is when Kurumada was making Ring Nikakero. They could easily like mention him like the guy that inspired Toriyama, and that will be like, what? Okay, I gotta check this out.
And you mentioned this, but you know what? You forget one key person at the time that they were airing this particular show they could have capitalized on, and it would have been the perfect compliment. Like Saint Seiya would have been the perfect compliment to it. Bleach.
Oh yeah, I forget.
Yeah, because Tite Kubo has stated, and literally the proof is in the pudding when you see that first arc when that first arc when they have to like save Rukia. It's literally the 12 houses arc.
Yeah, you can definitely see the inspiration in the early work.
And he has gone Tite Kubo has gone on record. Yeah, it's out there. Like one of his inspirations was Saint Seiya. So it's like if they would have capitalized on like if they would have said, yeah, from the guy who's like the show that inspired like Bleach, it would like people would have been flocking to it. So, but yeah, regardless, like I do hope that like going way back to what we were talking about, I do hope that we do here in the United States do get the final editions, because I do believe that those final editions would be great, especially since we're about to get the movie, and we're gonna talk a lot about the movie coming right. As a matter of fact, why don't we tap into that?
Just one final comment on the whole manga in English. Like, I genuinely hope that eventually gets a re-release, because here's the thing: like the Bis version, technically speaking, is the one that has been like licensed by Shueisha, right? The one for Shonen Jump. The thing is that Shueisha no longer holds the rights for the Saint Seiya property. Kurumada Pro literally owns the rights now. That's why they were able to release the final edition in the first place. It's another publisher, the one that's handling that, and the international rights, basically you need to make the deal with Kurumada Pro themselves. So theoretically it is possible. It's just a matter of there needs to be a change, either this or another editorial. I don't really know about manga editorials in the US, but like any other that there could be, theoretically anyone could deal the license for the final edition. It's just a matter of they have to take the risk and they have to market it right.
Okay, I got a question. I got a question for Comrade Furry. You have you're a little bit more into the who's publishing thing. Other than Viz, who do you want getting Saint Seiya?
Kodansha.
Maybe a little bit of that might be a bit of a stretch, but I'll accept it. So I was thinking 7 Seas. I was thinking 7 Seasons. They already have a working relationship already with Saint Seiya show.
Here's what I'll say about 7 Seas. 7 Seas, their releases are either spectacular or they are trash. Mm-hmm. And I say that as a longtime collector of 7 Seas. I have so many different manga. Well, so many of the different manga passed in my hands. I recently culled down my collection significantly to just core series that I want to keep and reread, because I've kind of stopped collecting manga, and now I just want to have my favorites instead of having every manga under the sun. Fun fact, I had a manga YouTube channel. All the videos are taken down. Don't try to look for it. It's under a name you guys wouldn't know me by, so don't look for it. But I used to have a fairly successful, like around 1,000 subscribers YouTube channel where I would do like manga hauls and stuff like that. So this is in my wheelhouse. But I will say that if you look at things like the Devilman and Cutie Honey hardbacks they did, those are fantastic. But if you look at the Devilman G and and the Devilman versus Hades releases, they're kind of iffy. Like they're just I don't like the size that they use. They don't use standard American manga size. They lean towards a smaller size, so it doesn't look as good on the shelf.
Yeah.
Well, not even. It's like somewhere in between American size and Japanese size. It's very strange. Yeah, they don't look good on a shelf. Like, and I know that's a very nitpicky thing to say, but if they were to do something more along the style of the hardbacks, I would like that. But I really want these final editions when they come out here to be more in the Sailor Moon Eternal size, where it's like oversized and larger, and more like high
So we're talking about like.
quality.
So
So
you're
that's
talking.
why I said Kodansha.
I was thinking. My brain went to when you're talking about like larger ones. Because I was thinking like because I remember here in the United States they tried this for about a minute they were trying to bring Fistula and Lord Star back again. This would have been the second time. Now we're on their third time, and apparently third time's a charm. But the second time they tried to do it, one of the things I really liked was this was like a company called Raijin. They're long out of press. They don't make anything anymore. But what I liked is that they had the Fistula and Lord Star rights. What I liked is that they had these like really cool hardcover editions, but they were like the size of like regular like trade paperbacks. So like they had like this really cool prestige, and like all the pages were glossy, and all of them were in full color. It was like if they can go that extra mile, that'd be great. But then getting to it's like I think ultimately at the end of the day, it'd be Kuromada Pro that has to like make the final decisions as to like, what goes into that stuff.
Well, have you seen how big the Eternal editions are for Sailor Moon?
Yes.
Like they're like college notebook size, like they're
Yeah.
large, and I love that. And I think that would be amazing because it lets you see so much more of the art because it's for those who are trying to find something, it's like Shonen Jump size. So it's more
So not the standard Takabon size. It's like more like a more prestige size. Like I think like
Yeah.
this is what you're saying. It's like a college bound book. And you're looking
Right.
like a standard like trade paperback that's out and about. It's like if you want to pick up like your Spider-Mans or your X-Men or your
Right.
whatever,
Like
it's the size of that. Yeah, and that was the thing I was thinking about when you were talking about that because like again that went from Raijin Comics of It's a North Star. I have the first one, but like it's in that same size and that same style. It's a hardback. And it's anyways.
And
we have to.
honestly, honestly, if I wouldn't care, like mind, I wouldn't mind if Viz kept the license anyway, because they also do that larger size fairly well. I'm not anti Seven Seas. I would love to work with them in the future if they want to sponsor us. I will say everything you've ever done has been amazing. But in reality, though, like everything has its pros and cons, and the last thing that I really was really big into with Seven Seas was the Devilman books that they were bringing out, because I do have both G and Hades complete in Japanese. I'm a very big Devilman fan. I love it very much. And I just was very disappointed by the quality of those releases. So it makes me nervous when Seven Seas has a title.
Fair enough. Okay, let's put this to rest because like we have a lot more to go through, and because like the thing is, it was something hoping we can go for like 5 minutes, but I'm pretty sure we like in half an hour. So we got to switch gears on this one. So
already
we got to talk about the movie. Like there's so much things that happened between like our last recording and this recording where it's just like, oh my god, it's like everything kind of like dumped on us. Okay, so first things first. You want to go this? You want to take this like in a timeline, or do you want to just do this like whatever seems more appealing?
I think how we feel, like whatever feels more appealing about it. Because
first then let's do this then. The first thing on the docket is that we saw a new trailer for the movie. We got to see a lot more footage of the characters in their cloths. We got to see Nero a little bit more clear in his cloth as well. So we got to see Diego Rico dressed in his armor, and got to see a little bit more action scenes. We got to see a little bit more. So, any thoughts on the trailer, Kamen Rider Furry?
I am going to be. This might sound controversial, okay, but this is my stance on trailers. Period. I will watch a trailer 1 or maybe 2 times, and it's usually far in advance of the movie coming out. And the reason why I do that is because trailers, especially in the year 2023, the year of our Lord, people like to put the entire plot of the movies, or at least the best parts of the movies, in the trailer. And then I end up feeling disappointed when I go to see the movie. A good example of that is there's a new Jennifer Lawrence movie that's coming out about her like dating, and they put it in quotation marks, so I think it's like a sex joke. This like nerdy 19-year-old guy, like his parents pay her to date him, and it looks cute and it looks funny, and eventually they're going to fall in love. But the trailer literally gives you the full movie's plot. Like I watched it and I was like, I feel like I don't need to watch this movie anymore. I will say the Saint Seiya trailer was not that bad as far as like giving away plot points and stuff like that. But I feel like it also took away some of the impact that I might have been excited for later, like seeing Marin. We got to see Marin's full armor in HD, like
Yeah, it
how
looks great.
they decided prayer. It looks great, but that would have been like a breathtaking moment to see that on the screen for the first time. So it's kind of like a give and take. Like I don't know. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. It did not quell any of my fears that I had from the previous couple episodes where we've talked about this, where it really feels like this is Seiya's origin story, and that's pretty much all we're gonna get. They could do a bait and switch and continue that along, but I don't see this movie being, I don't want to say successful. I can't feel it having the true Saint Seiya vibe without having the other three Bronze Saints, because we've got Ikki / Nero confirmed. Like, we saw him in the trailer. We've known for a while that he's going to be in the movie, but still, like, this is the quote final trailer supposedly, or the full trailer, I guess. And there's
Full
not
trailer,
even,
because we'll get you something later.
there's not even a hint of Hyoga, Shiryu, or Shun at all in this, and it makes me nervous, because a lot of adaptions really miss the point of what the series is about. They get so caught up in telling the story that they miss the essence of it. And the essence of Saint Seiya, to me personally anyway, is the friendship and the bond that keeps these 4/5, depending on when Ikki feels like joining the group, keeps them like glued together and keeps them going forward and keeps them overcoming these unfathomable odds. Like in the episodes, when we get to the episodes today, like not to get too far ahead, but like there's a moment when all four, like the core four guys, are finally back together on screen, and it's such like a sigh of relief. Even though I knew it was coming, even though I've seen these episodes tons of times, that never gets old, seeing all of them standing there together, even when they're beaten and bruised and knocked down like they are in these episodes. That it's that feeling, that group shot that just feels so powerful. And I'm just worried we're not going to get that here. And I'm worried that the movie is already at risk of doing poorly, at least in the English speaking countries, because it's never been as big a phenomenon here as it was in Japan or Mexico and Latin America and Central America and South America, all of that. It's never been that big of a phenomenon. And so I feel like with them missing at least what I feel like is the core of the series, that it's going to risk not being successful, and it scares me a little bit. So I'm still very nervous about this movie. Sorry to sound pessimistic.
That's fine, because I like, I have thoughts, and it's just like, it's one of the things where it's like I have like, you kind of like, there's a lot of it I do agree with, but first, why don't we talk to Benkas about what's going on? Benkas, what do you think of the new stuff that we saw in this trailer, and any thoughts in general of the trailer?
Okay, here's the thing. Like, I have specific views about the trailer, and I have like kind of like an overall view of how the movie seems to be looking, at the very least from what I've seen on social media in the Spanish-speaking side, and a little bit of the Brazilian side, but just very little. Don't take it too for granted on that. Okay, on the trailer itself. Okay, I've said this before. I am personally very excited for it. Like, I've been excited for it, I think, since the beginning, before we even got the trailer, since like the little information here and there was popping out. But I was cautiously optimistic. That kind of like diminished greatly when I saw that they were basically going to adapt the plot of the CGI show, like the first season, onto the big screen. But I've said this before on the show, that I think that the ideas weren't too bad. It was just a matter of execution. On the CGI show, it was abysmal. And here, it has a chance to, at the very least, be somewhat good or entertaining. And from what I've seen, and with this trailer here, I know that I'm going to enjoy the movie. I know that I am going to like it. So I don't really have a problem with that. But I do have, like, and now return to the general prospect, I do have a problem with the fact that I seem to be in a minority here. Unfortunately, I've seen on social media, mostly Twitter, but from what I heard, Facebook, it's just like a dumpster fire in general of negativity. But on Twitter, I've seen mostly like 60% or more, like 60% and forward, leaning more towards the negative aspect of it. Most people are not excited about the movie. Most people are very pessimistic about it. And many people are extremely negative about it. So it's kind of like it already has too much going against it just on the marketing side of it, because like there's like the campaign for the marketing on Japan like started going at full speed like a week ago basically, but before that there was zero, nada. So like everybody has been very pessimistic about it. Most people, if you ask them about it, they don't like the idea of it. They don't feel that this is Saint Seiya. Like it's kind of a mixed bag. So I'm on the fence, and I personally am on the fact that from what I've seen, I know I'm gonna enjoy it. But at the same time, I've also seen people that are extremely excited for it, even more than I am, that are really happy about this, that have a lot of confidence in what's gonna be coming out. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, to say the least. And I am on the fence of I am going to go see this movie. I'm going to try to see like exactly what I like or dislike about it once it actually comes out, and I have something to criticize or to not to or to praise. But I think that I'm gonna enjoy it, and I just hope that it has more future, because that's the idea, and that's what they've been like kind of hinting at this. Because yeah, going with what Kamen has been saying, it's gonna be basically focused on Seiya and to a degree on Iki/Nero, because he's gonna be like the quote unquote the villain of the movie, so, not the main villain, but he's going to be like the nemesis of this particular movie. And the other three, probably from what I remember hearing, I think they're trying to keep them like for next projects. But if this project does not succeed, like there's that's not gonna happen anyway. So it's kind of like it's a scary thing, but at the same time, it's like, well, the franchise has like gone through this and worse, and its message is always to stand on the face of adversity, even if it's like the worst kind of adversity. So that's my take on it for now.
Yeah, like I wasn't saying that I wasn't going to enjoy it. I will enjoy it because I love seeing. I've said it 100 times. I love seeing different interpretations and stuff. But I hate to bring up this cursed movie again. But it's feeling every time I see a different trailer or different clips, it feels like the Jim and the Holograms movie where they were so confident that it was going to do well, and they're like, oh, we'll have the Misfits and Jim and the Holograms too. And it's like, no, you need to have them in the first one because you're not ever, no movie's guaranteed a sequel ever. Like, there's never been a movie where they're like, yes, this is definitely going to get a sequel no matter what, because you never know the audience's reaction to it. And I'm just worried, like Benha said, that yeah, they're keeping them in the back pocket for Saint Seiya 2. It's like we might not get one. Like we might. We don't know what the box office for this is going to look like, because like there is hype and there is negativity mixed in there. But it's just like, why would you be like, oh yeah, we'll save them for the sequel on something that as risky as an English language Saint Seiya adaptation? Like, that just sounds asinine to me, but that's just me.
Okay, here's my thought, and and I see the reason why they paired everything back to just Seiya and Iki. And the fact is, it's like it's story reasons. If they want to get through everything a lot faster, they don't like it's a good that's gonna be a good way for them to just like get rid of a lot of the fact and just get to the main point. Which I think like what this movie's gonna be like a lean 90 minutes, not a little bit past that, because that's I think that's the idea. Like unfortunately, when you have so many moving parts, you have to sacrifice a lot of it. And unfortunately, seeing how things are, I'm pretty sure they looked at what was going on and it's like, okay, I think if we just focus on Seiya and Iki, I think like that can be something that can be something that they can work on. And like I think like too, it's like as long as like, and I think they're banking everything on Seiya. I think they're banking. I think they're putting the farm on Seiya. And so it's like that's maybe that could work. I'm like I like Seiya. But I also understand too, it's like Seiya is not well liked in the community. Like I think he always comes out in the popularity polls. He's always fifth.
Well,
So it's like, so he's not
devil's advocate to that though.
Here's the thing. I kind of agree with you to a certain extent, but that's a topic that if we ever have the opportunity, I want to debate so badly, because I'm actually against that. But okay, that's not the point. Go on.
What I was going to say though, it's like devil's advocate to that though. Like, if you're saying that they want to pare stuff back, we know that Cassius is going to be in the movie. We know that Marin is going to be in the movie. We know that some kind of Gerard-esque or
Gerard.
yeah, some kind of Gerard-esque character is going to be in the movie. they could have easily pared those back and kept the freaking main characters of the franchise in. Because, like, I'm a huge Cassius fan. I'm all for seeing Cassius. I'm 100% not suggesting they toss him out. But from a marketing standpoint, when you're looking at things like merchandising that you can pair with the movie, like toys, when you're looking at like posters that you could come out with, like, remember the 2017 Power Rangers movie? Each one of them had their own epic, awesome looking posters solo. Could you imagine if we got that for Saint Seiya? Like, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, but the thing is, again,
But I'm saying, like, they chose to include these more minor characters and leave out the major characters. It just makes zero sense to me from any standpoint. The storytelling, marketing, fandom doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to watch the movie, though. I will enjoy the movie. I think it looks visually striking. I think that they did a great job with the budget that they had, and that's not a snide comment at all. That's, dude, it looks amazing. It reminds me a lot of Repo the Genetic Opera, how they had like $3 in their budget, and that movie looks really good even to this day, because that was like a 2007 2008 movie. So it kind of reminds me of that, where you can tell that they're on a budget, but it still looks nice for being on a budget. But
also another thing to it. Another thing is you can actually fucking see what's going on the screen.
right.
Yeah.
I went to see Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania. Well, there were scenes. Well, there was a lot. Well, that movie was bright. It's like sometimes you're like, what? Who's talking? What Amoeba's talking here? Like, is that Paul Rudd or how many? Like, I liked it, but just like also too, it's like, yeah. Like I can see, like, well, I understand why they want to pare down the budget of CGI, so that's why it's like we gotta make it dark so no one sees the mistakes. Here at least they're like, okay, at least one of the things I find interesting about the movie, and one of the things I like, is that the cloths are practical. All the cloths are practical. Like, if they all, like, Makinyu and Diego Trico are wearing the actual cloth, and that's something they have to CGI in. So it's like,
can I say something on that now that you're touching upon that point, and this comment actually pissed me off quite a bit.
Go on.
I saw it because there was this. I'm not gonna say the user because I think he's somewhat known, but he was a French person on Twitter, and he's basically saying, like, he was making the point of, like, we're not like people, like old people stuck in the past, blah blah blah. Like, look at this looks terrible. Kurumada and I don't know who else is destroying the franchise with this, like, being negative, right? But I saw another comment that this guy said, yeah, I agree on that. That pissed me off because he said, even the fucking, like, you've seen the pictures of the original toys, the Saint Claude series, like the very, very first ones from Bandai.
Yeah,
they said, and I quote, the faces, the sculpture, and the clots on that look better than the CGI on this movie, and the clots themselves. And I was like, okay, go fuck yourself. Now you're just being a fucking asshole. Like, let's go fuck yourself. Like, seriously. Like, there's not liking the designs, which I can completely understand. I completely agree. I have that particular point with when it comes to Omega. But the one thing is to disagree and to dislike or even hate the designs, and another is just say some fucking bullshit. That's stupid.
Yeah, when it's also too, you're comparing apples and oranges. Like, you cannot compare something that was done in 1986 to something that's made in 2023, especially since, like, for example, toy technology has gone so far from what they did, and also too that those designs were necessary because they were designed to have one function, and that was put the damn clots onto the toy. So that's why, like, the mold, that's why the faces in the molds are secondary, because, like, they were more focused on the actual, like, engineering of the toy itself.
Exactly. And
so, like, you can't compare that to something where it's like, okay, when it comes to a movie, especially, you have to, like, consider budget. You have to consider, like, how you're gonna make things work and stuff like that. So yeah,
and for example, I've seen comments that say, I have seen cosplays that look better than that, and yes, I've seen cosplays that I could say that. I could agree with that. I've seen cosplays that look faithful to the original source material, and that look astounding, and which will look amazing on live action. But here's the thing: one thing is to wear that for certain poses that last like a couple seconds when you're taking a photograph, and another is doing an actual freaking movie with motion in it. But, like, those people don't tend to see those points, and it's kind of irrelevant trying to argue with those people because they have their mindset on something, and you're not gonna make it change. But sometimes I hear things that are like, they're so asinine that are like, okay, one thing is to dislike something, another is to throw common sense completely out the window. But who's to say?
All right, I'm ready for you.
also on that topic of like people in cosplays that look amazing, and and you have to also think of the medium that you're consuming that in. At an anime convention, you're surrounded by people that have wacky Super Saiyan hair and have brightly colored clothing and have intricate corsets and dresses and all of this stuff, and it doesn't look out of place. But if you were to make a serious legitimate movie with the anime style, it doesn't translate as fluidly to real
Or
life
practically.
live action. If it looks too cartoony, it's gonna look weird and out of place. And do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb when you have Seiya like still wearing that like anime V1 cloth in like
Right.
in a more grounded sense.
Oh, now that you
So
mentioned that, like, and here's another point. Like, if I wanted to be extremely pedantic and extremely arrogant, but objectively right, I could say that the anime is a fucking piece of shit in terms of designs because they deviate so much from the original designs that you could basically say that it is fan fiction. So, like, I'm going with this to a ludicrous extreme, but the point that I'm trying to make is like, don't go fucking high and mighty on themselves because most of these people legitimately have never even read the manga; they've just seen the anime, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you gotta have some consistency in the arguments that you're saying, right? Like if we're gonna go to that extreme, there are extremes that we can take them to, but it's irrelevant to do that. That's not the point.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So we're on agreement that like this movie has problems.
Yeah.
Like that and unfortunately a lot of those problems cannot be fixed because of time and also like script reasons and also because it's like for whatever reason there's gonna be problems regardless. Because like I do agree with you, Conrad, Furry, that like the essence of the Saint Seiya is the core main fight front Saints. Some also may argue that it might be the Gold Saints. Who knows? We're not gonna have that argument. That's a whole different argument that we can have. And unfortunately, when that happens, like we gotta start handing everybody like maces and shields, and like and we're not gonna go to a Greco-Roman arena. We're just gonna go at it because that's just a bloodbath waiting to happen if we go into that argument. I mean, but we are also, but regardless, we also all in agreement that there are some positives.
Right.
So
it's got the 3 P's. It's got potential and promise, but it's also got problems.
Yes. Actually, that's actually not a bad way of looking at it. Yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, but then again, too, like most movies have this problem. I'm pretty sure too. Like again, I'm not privy to what happened in the writing room. I'm not privy to like what was happening because I know too a lot of decisions also come from Toei or a lot of decisions come from Sony. So we don't know anything about those decisions at the end of the day. So, like, we've seen movies made by Sony and how they crash and burn on themselves from how much executive meddling they've done. I'm looking at you, Morbius.
This would be. I think that in this case it would just be Toei. Sony's only distributing. Like the ones that actually made all the decisions were Toei.
And it also depends on what market that they're wanting this to be successful in too. Like, just because it's an English-speaking movie doesn't necessarily mean that they're wanting it to be a knockout in the United States. You know what I mean? Like, movies that are in English are also very popular in a lot of Chinese countries, a lot of Asian countries like China, is what I was going to say. So, like, and China is like a massive movie market too that keeps the movie industry afloat for the most part.
Even though nowadays it's that shift is now going towards the Middle East, unfortunately.
And specifically thinking of this movie, even though it's not necessarily like designed for, I think that that would be the argument. But a lot of people feel, and that's been a discussion that has been talked about quite a bit, and some of the things that unfortunately, again, taken to the extreme, but upsets like people from this side. Is like they when they're making this movie, they're trying to capture the American audience because when it comes to movies, that's like what the target that they're most interested in capturing. But here, well, that would be the argument or the mentality. And the only point that I can say that kind of justifies this is that when it comes to Latin America specifically, like Toei unfortunately is one of those companies that it's run by very old Japanese businessmen, and and anybody that knows anything about Japanese business, particularly with old Japanese businessmen, know that they're extremely close-minded. But one thing is for sure, like this movie is not designed from the ground up for the Japanese audience, and it's certainly not designed for, like, for example, a Latin American audience or a French audience. Like, I don't know, like France, they consider it like a target audience for this series, but not that much. And Latin America, they basically hide us on the fucking ground before the concert, so it's kind of like now they fucking know like they have a presence here. It's like, oh, we've been proven wrong, but that wasn't until like last year. So like the decisions made for this project in particular were not taken into consideration with this market in mind.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, what they did is they just went for a catch-all and hope and pray that like maybe something would work in one market, and they're just trying to take out stuff and put in stuff that might that well, in some markets it may not work. It might be able to, in hopes it might be in other that might work in other markets. Again, we don't know we don't know, because like we know how I've talked to people who worked in the industry, and they've told me like different stories about, and I've heard different stories about like, oh, when I was working in this movie, they had to make us do this and this to please this market and this. So it's like we won't know any of this, because like I'm pretty sure there's a lot of NDAs involved with what they're talking about. So I'm pretty sure in the next 15, 20 years from now, when all three of us are writing the novel, what the hell happened with this movie, which I do hope, like, in those 20 years, it's gonna be a book. All three of us will research like the hell out of what happened.
Start writing.
But when the dust is settled, because I'm pretty sure that's how long a lot of those NDAs last. Believe it or not, I've known a lot of people that are NDAs are like, yeah, they put me on a 10-year NDA. It's like, dude, why are you putting on a 10-year NDA on a crap project? They should at least give you like 2 years, or at least a year, not 10 years. God dang it! So we won't know at least for the next 10 years, like what went wrong or what the mentality was behind the scenes. All right.
I mean, I know why they do that, but it's morbid to say, but
I was gonna say, like, speaking. Why don't we transition ourselves? Like we've this episode, like I think we're gonna be going all over the place, because like this has just been one of those episodes. We're on one today, as I say. But we have to. But speaking of NDAs, speaking of people that should have not said things that they should have said, and let's talk about Mark Dacascos. I love the guy. I've met him before at different conventions. The guy is just an incredible dude. I love the guy. Yes. He's always enthusiastic. Everything he's been in has been like he at least saves the product. Whether it's Double Dragon or The Crime or whatever subpar movie it is, I know if I see Mark Dacascos' name on it, at least I'll know it's like he's the best part of the movie. Kickboxer 4, I'm looking at you, because that movie sucked, but at least you had Mark Dacascos, and holy shit, that movie was so shitty, but thankfully you had him on board to do that movie. Anyways, Mark Dacascos, he's also on social media trying to promote all his wares, because like that's what a good actor does. So he posted a couple, like, I think like the day after we recorded, he posted a video saying like, yeah, hey, I'm gonna be at Wondercon. And some of the other stars of the movie are going to be at WonderCon, and we're going to be here on this day, and all that stuff. And about an hour later, or a little less than an hour later, I want to say like 30 minutes later, the video got pulled down, and the only thing left was just like a video of him just running away. Says big things are coming. So I wondered. So like once it's on the internet, it's out there. Like we know what's going on. We know. Like despite the efforts of good minded of like he meant well. He was doing his due diligence and hyping everything up. But and he's also one of the guys who's like, you mean so well, so bless your heart. So like I'm not really mad at him, or I'm pretty sure he didn't read the contract, or I'm pretty sure they told him one thing. They're like, it's a little too early to take that down. So I'm pretty sure. So like I said, like. Now that the information's out there, we knew for a fact that they're gonna have that the Saint Seiya movie is gonna have a panel at WonderCon, and it's gonna be on the first day of the convention on Friday, March 24th. And the cast that's been confirmed so far has been it's been Mark Dacascos, Diego Trico, the actress who plays
Madison Iceman,
Madison Nami, Franca Janssen. Franca Janssen is also gonna be on hand. And I believe also too, Andy Chen is going to be also be part of the panel as well. So that's on Friday, and it's pretty much going to be a presentation. I'm pretty sure what they're going to do is they're going to show off the movie. and they're going to show off like they're going to have like a discussion like pretty similar to what they did at San Diego Comic-Con, but I think they're going to show off way more stuff. I predict they're going to talk a little bit more about in depth like when the movie's coming out. So if the movie's coming out soon, they have to talk about it. So yeah, so we have so that happened. So but we'll put a pin on that for now because like there's a lot more going on with that. What we do need to talk about is like soon after that news broke out, the trailer came out, and afterwards we started seeing dates come out for international release. We know the first one that got a hard confirmation on it was France. France is gonna get it on May 24th. So
that's correct, and that's officially announced by Sony Pictures.
Yeah, so that's confirmed by them. And then I believe it was Cinépolis in South America. They said it's going to be in Peru,
in Peru, in Chile, in Colombia, and in Panama. Those are the 4 countries that this chain of movie theaters that has a presence in Mexico. That's one of the
in the United States as well.
Yes, so it's a big chain. Like so far, all those 4 countries, well, those 5 countries have been the only ones to officially announce like when they're planning to release the movie. So in Latin America, it seems it's going to be released at the same time as in Japan. But we're also waiting for confirmation because they've already mentioned prior that both Mexico and Brazil are also going to get like the movie. Originally, they were like the only 2 countries that kind of like were confirmed to receive the movie, so that kind of got a lot of people speculating and being nervous that it would not arrive in the rest of South America and maybe Central America. This news denies that thing, so it's a matter of now distributing and actually making official announcements. But we can expect it to be released more or less around those times, probably.
Yes. So we kind of we have like hard confirmation, and I'm pretty sure like when WonderCon rolls around, we're gonna get hard confirmation as well for what's coming up next with the itself. So I mean, quick thoughts on these bit of news that like on the date news at least, because like I want to transition us to WonderCon news because like there's a lot of that we need to discuss as well. So quick thoughts, Comrade Furry.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Good.
No, I'm not international. So
I am
excited. Appreciate it.
Excited and appreciative for the information. Just waiting on the dates for both the US, Canada, and Mexico.
All right. Fair enough. Okay, that's why it's like I know this is something that's like let's see what else. So all right, so let's go back a little bit. So let's go back because like soon after that bit of news with the dates and then the trade, we got now hard confirmation from WonderCon that they're going to be doing that. The panel is going to be held, like I said, they're going to do the panel on April. I want to say April because they was held in April. And this is the first time in a long time they did it in March. So it's March 24th. It's going to be March 24th, the first panel, because they're going to do 2 panels. And I believe they're like I believe they're going to get like the main hall, like they called it the main hall. It's actually like it's a theater in like that's right in front of the like literally right in front of the convention center. And I was talking to some people online. It's like, I've been in that theater where it's like it's enormous. It is like one of the biggest like places I've been to. If not, it's equally as big as Hall H here at San Diego Comic, where Hall H is like it takes up a huge chunk of the convention center. And here at like this theater where they're gonna do this presentation, where they most likely are, it's gonna take up this huge space. And I've been there before for other presentations. I remember watching a few movies. Like I remember watching Batman Ninja when it premiered at WonderCon one year. Same with Batman vs. Ninja Turtles that they premiered there in that place as well. So whenever they have like a big event, they go all out and they always put in this particular theater, and it's so huge. And I can't wait for them to like utilize that and having all these Saint Seiya fans converge on there. If there is, because like it seems kind of sad that like we only learned about this news like 2 weeks before the convention. But then that's always how unfortunately Comic-Con works. Unfortunately, when it comes to like panels and stuff like that, because it is Comic-Con. I mean, WonderCon is part of the Comic-Con family. So whenever they make announcements like that, it's always like a week or 2 beforehand, and like that's when it's like unfortunately when it comes to stuff like that, it's like we only get the news as it happens. Like we get the news and we get the news about it, and like you literally have like 2 weeks to like make that decision happen. And we'll get to that in a little bit. So we got the news about that, and then a couple of days ago we finally got word about like what they're going to do another panel. It's going to be the following Saturday on the 25th. And it's gonna be more like a primer to the Saint Seiya, like explaining like the history and stuff like that of the series. both panels will be moderated by YouTuber Dan Larson, who runs Toy Galaxy, aka Secret Galaxy. He's done so many like mini documentaries on like everything underneath the sun. He's done like Power Rangers and Sailor Moon, whatever geek topic he had like a really in depth, like he has these fun in depth videos, and they're so much fun. And I've known the guy personally. I talked to him a lot of times on Twitter and also on Instagram. The guy's complete. And when I found out he was one of these panels, like I was like, I mean, I wish it was us. I really sincerely wish it was us. But if we're like say we're like a Chevy Nova and he's a Rolls Royce, you're gonna pick the Rolls Royce. So I and on that regards, it's like yeah, I know where to concede, and unfortunately, like I know like this guy's a better choice for that. So in terms of news for the convention itself, in terms of like the panelists and stuff like that. Oh, one last thing. They said there's going to be a signing soon after the panel at on Friday. And here's something that's interesting. They have it said it's designated on the actual floor of the convention center. So the signing is going to happen at the inside the actual convention center, at like where all the stuff happens, where like all the vendors are and stuff like that. And apparently, it seems like they're going to have their own booth, and it's going to be like. So I know in like conventions, like I don't know how they do it in Mexico, Bangkok, but it's like we have designated areas. We have a designated area for like panels, and then we have like a designated area for like everything else, where like where you can walk in. That's where like you walk in, you buy your stuff, or you check out the stuff and whatnot. So and that's what we call it, like the main floor. And on the main floor, it seems like they're gonna have their own dedicated space for the movie. So either it's gonna be shared with like another entity, either Crunchyroll or Sony Pictures themselves, or they're gonna have their own presence there at the convention. And my theory is, I think that because they're putting so much effort with 2 panels, I think they're gonna have their own dedicated like booths, quote unquote, dedicated to the movie itself. So with that said, Becas, any thoughts on like all the news that from Wondercon that may or may not happen?
I just wish that I had a visa so I could go. Unfortunately, by the time that the news are out, because I've actually been thinking about renewing my visa so that I can travel to the US. It's been quite a while since I had an active visa, and they announced it just like a couple weeks prior to the event. So there's no way in hell that I could get one, even if I tried my damn hardest. So I was like, you have to you need to like run backwards and do you need to do the Superman thing to get it like 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. If you want to get 6 months ago, more like.
Yeah, let's say. Yeah, well, that's if you're lucky.
Yeah, but it's a shame, but well, it is what it is. But there is a member of our team that will be going there.
Furry, congratulations! You're going to WonderCon.
Oh God, that's so cool! I didn't ask that for work. I'm sorry.
I can't. But before we get to that little bit last bit of news, Furry, do you have any thoughts on and also Furry, do you have any thoughts on like the panel and the presentation and what possibly could be shown at WonderCon?
I have an undying weird obsession with convention merch. So if within the next minute or so somebody from our team says that they're going to be there, I would hope that they would remember their dear friend Kamen Rider Furry and not forget him this time, because I didn't get the bag from the last convention that you went to, and I was very.
I didn't even go to those conventions.
I thought you went to that.
No, I went people seeing outside, but I didn't go inside the convention center.
You said that you went to it
I went to it, but I didn't go inside.
Ramses, when you say I went to the convention, it's like, oh yeah, I went to go see, Britney Spears performing, or I went to go see Britney Spears. And it's like, oh, you went to the concert? It's like, no, I stood outside the venue the whole time. Like, people don't say that. That's not.
I know. I specifically said that when I was.
Either way, I can give
you. You're just tossing me underneath the bus here. God,
I can give you any amount of sob stories to get some convention merch, because I don't get to travel much, and I love that kind of stuff.
All right.
If somebody from our team is going, we don't know yet. Who knows?
All right. So cat's out of the bag. Cat's out of the bag, guys. I'm working with Scarlet Rhapsody. If you don't know who Scarlet Rhapsody is, I worked with them before when I went to Anime Los Angeles, and they've been on other shows as well. You know Dame Scarlet Antival. She was on she was on Ancient Anime. So you know one of the people that runs it, and they're really good friends of mine. I'm gonna be helping them out at WonderCon, and congratulations! I'm gonna be at WonderCon, guys! Yay!
Yeah.
Did you just congratulate yourself?
Yeah, it's like it's a picture of Obama giving the medal to himself.
It reminded me of I'm a big Drag Race fan, but it reminded me of Miss Vanjie saying, "Oh Lord, and Miss Vanjie, I just thank myself."
But yeah, like I was talking to soon after this news, after the initial news broke, after the very first news with Mark Dacascos making that little flub, I was back and forth with like a lot of people, and thanks to them, I'm gonna be helping them out at the convention. But thanks to the fandom themselves, they helped me get something that I desperately needed, which was business card. And I do hope that like when I go to the convention, I present these cards to like whoever is there, like to represent the Sony, at Toei, some of the actors, agents, or even the actors themselves. I do hope that I can get a hold of them and like, hey, we run this podcast. Here's the information. We would love for you to come on the show. And it's like if we can get also more like swag from it, even better. Because I'm like just like you, Kamen Furry, I like free swag, and like I want all the free swag in the universe. Like I just want to be
specifically like stuff that they give away for free at conventions, and I don't know why.
I still say my favorite thing I got from a convention is I got this badge when they were promoting the movie.
Oh, nice!
So good. But anyways,
I had a don't drag. First of all, nobody drag me for this because I feel like I'm about to out myself as a terrible person. I love the live action Speed Racer movie. It's in my top.
What are you talking about? That was incredible.
I love that movie.
People,
I know. I don't understand. I really don't understand. Yeah, people. I don't know why. When it came out, like people hated the movie. I was like, "Did you watch the show? This is a faithful recreation of."
I saw it like 6 times in theaters, but at Anime St. Louis, I think it was 2007 or 2008. They were giving away a bunch of stuff for it, and I had this giant poster of it that was my like prized possession for so long. And then somebody who I'm related to that is an older sibling who will not be named ruined it by ripping it off a wall because they're a terrible person. But that's I think that kind of like sparked my like love of convention merchandise. Like I get convention merch from conventions I didn't even go to. Like I had what I think it was the same. It was the same convention that you went to. That had the Saint Seiya merch at it. They had Futo P, the Kamen Rider anime. They had posters of that, and I bought one offline because I wanted it.
Yeah, I wanted to because like they were giving out tote bags, and I just bit the bullet and bought out my own. I paid out of my own pocket to get the Saint Seiya tote bag. So if you're wondering, like, yes, if you see me around the convention or something like that, or see me wandering around with a Saint Seiya tote bag, I paid money out of pocket for that. I don't regret it because that's my everything. That's like my utility bag whenever I go to or whenever I go out. So yeah, I'm gonna be at the convention. I'm gonna see what I'm gonna do about it. I am gonna have. So here's what I can tell you guys. Right? I am going to have a recording there. It's gonna be a raw dog recording. It's gonna be me and my phone. There's gonna be an episode that's gonna be up. There's gonna be an episode immediately after the panel. So immediately after the panel, expect an episode of the show like live from the convention floor. And whatever happens afterwards, like I do know for a fact we're due for an episode that Sunday, but I'm not staying Sunday. As a matter of fact, I am leaving immediately that Sunday, so I can come back and record the following episode. So yeah, so no matter what happens, I'm gonna be I'm coming back here. I'm gonna be here, and there's no delays. I'm gonna be here coming back here as early as possible, so I can come back and record to give you guys a more in-depth report as of what went down at the convention next episode.
That's gonna be quite the rushy one, but it'll be great, I'm sure.
Trust me, this just means I gotta start doing my homework way in advance, and I'm pretty sure. And so I'm expecting you guys I'm expecting you to carry at least the episode portion, where it's like when we had the episode discussion, because at least because I'll be like, what happened again? I wrote down notes, but the notes don't make sense.
My notes don't make sense, but I watched it yesterday, so I don't know if I I don't know how much help I'm gonna be.
We're recording like just a little anecdote. Like we're recording Moon Sez. We were talking about a particular part, and I was like, what did I write down? And then you mentioned it, like, oh, that's what I wrote down because you mentioned it soon after.
Yeah, our notes end up being very similar with both shows, I feel like.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, for the reason why, my notes are like all over the place is I actually handwrite my notes because like I feel like that I retain more information better if I handwrite my notes. So I have like a notebook right now. I have like half a notebook right now of just notes ever since we started. Like ever since October when we did that episode with ever since we did the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That's when I started taking notes physically with of the episodes and stuff like that. So
Don't
everything
be freaked out, but I knew that because I specifically remember that and it retained in my brain for some reason.
good.
I was,
All
if you couldn't remember, I was going to tell you it was the second movie.
But regardless, I have 8 pages of notes for a 45-minute movie. What the hell?
That happens.
I know. And then when we get to this episode, like I only wrote like for 4 episodes, I wrote down 3 pages. It's like, oh god, this is.
It's just a little bit of a tangent, but like one of the things I want to do for ancient anime, actually, it's a very difficult thing to find. It's a very, I wouldn't say rare, just an anime that nobody gave a crap about. And my friend went to my house because my brother's selling our family house, and she got all my old DVDs, and I saw it in there, and because back before I even knew what ancient anime was, like before I'd had the concept of it, I knew that I wanted to do something where I was like ripping on bad anime, like bad older anime. And I have a notebook from my childhood where I had handwritten notes on that. And it's a 45-minute OVA, and I had like 22 pages of just like me ripping it apart. And handwritten. So I 100% know how you can get that many notes from a short little movie.
So yeah. So since we again we're on one today, but any closing thoughts on anything we discussed, Bangkos?
I think that there's a lot of okay. That's everything. I think we'll have a lot to talk about in the future. I am very excited to look like how things pan out. Let's just wait a little longer and see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Conrad Furry, any final thoughts before we move on to the episode discussion?
I just want to remind everybody, very similar to the warning that I gave whenever we started doing the CGI show. We all 3 of us love Saint Seiya. We are nitpicking things about it because we love it, because we want to point out some of the absurd stuff or where we think that it could have improved, but we also will gush on it when we need it. So when you hear us being a little bit more negative in tone about the movie that's coming up, I don't want that to be a reflection of us or the community as a whole. I don't want it to have an impression on our listeners or the Saint Seiya community. We're just like, we can sit here all day and talk about the great things about it, but we also have to point out the negative parts of it too. The conversation did skew a little bit negative, but I want to remind people that we're all here because we love this show and we want it to succeed. None of the 3 of us want this movie to fail. We are just pointing out some obvious concerns that ourselves and others have. So just keep that in mind, that we're not hating on anything. These people worked really hard to do this. We know from the past convention appearances that the cast and the crew have had, that they're all very passionate about this, and hopefully that will come through in the finalized product. So
yeah, we know for a fact we converted Diego to, and because he's buying anything with the word Iki on it.
Yeah, I love that he keeps saying Iki. Like that's another thing that I really want to quickly touch on, because I've seen a lot of people talking about, because they didn't say Nero's name in the trailer, but they said Sienna, and that really triggered a bunch of people. That they're using the name, the
anglicized
names or whatever. But it's just because that's unfortunately where the CGI show went. That's the most recent thing that the public at large has been invested in.
Unfortunately,
so it makes sense that they're using them. Just grin and bear it if you don't like it. If you don't mind it, then it's whatever. This is not mandated by Toei. I've been seeing a lot of people say that Toei has like a manifesto where they demand people use certain names. That's not the case. from any evidence that we can see whatsoever, that's not the case. It's just that that's what the CGI show went with, to be more English neutral than specifically sounding Japanese, and so that's
Yeah,
what the
they want to be
movie
more
felt.
US centric.
Yeah,
I'm using that word a lot lately. It was my word of the day.
it's a very
So
specific word of the day.
yes, but yeah. So one last thing on my. I live by one belief. That is, if you truly love something, you also if you truly love something, you're also the first person to know the flaws and will acknowledge the flaws and will say that this has flaws and this too also makes me this makes me feel a certain way. Either we laugh at it or we get angry about it. If we truly love something, we also have to acknowledge the negatives of things as well. So that's always been my belief when I do anything I do. When it comes to Moon Sez, when it comes to this show, or whenever I have to do a review on a movie or a video game or something or another on Sunday Morning Squadron, I always say if there's a franchise I absolutely love, whether it's Saint Seiya, Sailor Moon, or like a G.I. Joe, or a Transformers, or a Masters of the Universe, or whatever franchise that I absolutely love, I'll gush over it. Like they're the only parts I'll like, but I also will be here and be like, I also will be the first person to like note the negative and also be like, this is not working. This is not the way, bro. So with that said, guys, speaking of stuff that may or may not be negative, let's go into the episode discussion.
You say may or may not like, and we don't know.
The thing is, okay. So why don't we start with episode 61? So let's just jump in. Like let's rip out the Band-Aid because I think the thing is we have I have
Ramses, we're losing you.
Okay, we're starting to notice a lot of overlap between what we're doing on Saturday mornings. Well, not Saturday mornings, sorry. What we're doing on Moon Sez, and also we're seeing the overlap here on this show as well. And it's something that hit me kind of like with a ton of bricks as I was watching. So when we got to episode 61, we just Hyoga comes back. Hyoga's back. You know, they unthawed him, and he gives he gives one hell of a motivational speech to the troops. And because he has plot armor, because it's not explained why he's not possessed, why Milo's ability where he can like freeze you doesn't work.
No, they explained it very briefly.
Yeah, it's like
it's too fast.
It's shown like, oh, this happened, and then they move on.
No, but because they don't explain it at first, but then the second time Milo uses it on him, he says, "I know, or I see how fast you can move," or something like that, and you won't dodge it this time, or something to that effect. So basically, Hyoga preemptively figured out that was going to happen and dodged the attack. But it just was like a fast thing that I guess they just didn't bother to animate.
Yeah,
making it more badass.
The way that it's kind of light ambiguous, but the thing that happened there is the reason why Milo's restriction did not work on Hyoga compared to Seiya and Shiryu was that he preemptively used his Cosmo to create a cold aura around him, but using his Cosmo, so that stopped Milo's restriction from coming near him. So it did not affect him because Milo's Cosmo did not reach Hyoga's with his.
So yeah, so basically, what Hyoga does, he puts like an ice ring around Milo, which
because that's something that happens, I guess. Like that's a power he has. It reminds me of it reminds me very much of the Moon Tiara Stardust that happens exactly one time in Sailor Moon. It's
like Superman 2, where it's like randomly he can take his or Superman can take his emblem and just make a net.
But he had used this power before. He used it against Black Swan.
He did.
Yeah. Remember that when they first met, there was a moment where he used the same technique against him, but he only uses it like twice in the series. The first one against Black Sickness, and then against Milo, and he never uses it again, as far as I can remember.
Yeah, I did not remember that. Can I also say before, just as something that was glossed over, he's carrying Shun.
Yeah,
and they're asking the Seiya and Shiryu are like, is he dead? And like Hyoga's being like really vague about it. These guys think that when you get knocked unconscious, you're dead. Like, check for a pulse, because spoiler alert, a couple episodes later, Shun just stands up like nothing happened.
Like, oh, that was a good nap.
Yeah, like had a nice nap. It's like just because people go unconscious doesn't mean they die. Somebody needs to tell these kids that, because this is like the third or fourth time that somebody's gotten knocked unconscious and they just assume that they're dead. It's like, come on, try a little harder.
So yeah, basically, they I think they give Shun's body to I think Shiryu. They tell him, like the other say, like he tells him like go, keep on going forward. I'll catch up with you guys. This is gonna be an easy fight, quote unquote. Spoilers, it's not an easy fight.
Well, he's more like they've realized now they don't have to defeat everybody in every temple, and they're just like let's just get through. You guys go through the temple. If I die here, I die, but at least you're able to move on, because he's not going to pursue you past his temple. Basically, it's the vibe that I got from it.
So basically, they go off, and then they're pretty much there for like 20 minutes, because like we cut to Sayori with Mu and Kiki, and then all of a sudden Tatsumi comes in wearing kendo gear and has a kendo sword. I wrote down here, I spent 7 hours putting on this kendo gear. A quote by Tatsumi that may not be real.
Is Yu Yu Hakusho the show where the main character was like really big into kendo? No, that wasn't, because that was Yusuke. There's some anime that it gave me really big vibes.
Samurai X?
Was it Samurai X where he?
No. Well, one of the characters, but not the main character.
There was like a 90s anime that I was really big into as a kid that was like had really heavily focused on kendo, and it was interesting because that was in the era when they were trying to act like Japan didn't exist when they dubbed anime. So it was just very interesting to me and very striking to me. But yeah, it was definitely a very comical scene. But my concern is like maybe I'm forgetting something, because we did take a long break there between watching the beginning of this arc and then we started doing the CGI show, and then we went back to this arc. Why did Mu just let her almost get murdered? Like Mu just straight up is like, not my problem, and left.
I have a huge problem with that scene, but I want you guys to go first before I nitpick it.
I just wrote down. I think I was telling you, Comrade Furry, but I just wrote down bitch pie.
I was just like, he's just like, I agreed to watch her, not to actually do anything. I'm out of here. Like,
yeah.
Just
so context. Basically, what's happening is like Tatsumi comes in, and then a couple of the lower rank mooks come in. They're like, if we kill those. I think that's defenseless. If we kill her, we can totally take her. We can totally take him down. And Tatsumi holds his own. That's why I wrote down. I was like, at least Tatsumi holds his own. But Mu's just like, he's just like, I'm not gonna wash my hands. Like, I'm just gonna let this all happen. That's why I wrote down, bitch, bye. So like he stands idly. Oh, he stands idly while Athena could be possibly killed, and while Tatsumi is getting his ass kicked.
The only thing I can think of is like maybe Mu didn't want to explicitly go against the Sanctuary, because like he's kind of done some like anti-Sanctuary things by like repairing the cloths and by standing over Sayori, but I wonder if like him actually fighting against like soldiers from Sanctuary would label him as a traitor and an enemy, like blatantly. That's the only way I was able to justify it in my head, because it just was a very strange scene all around. It was,
it's made even worse because Kiki is actually pointing out the obvious. Yeah, like, why are you not helping him?
Go help her. And it was obviously just a setup, because they're bringing back the other Bronze Saints, the ones that have been in line at Starbucks for like 6 hours waiting for her coffee.
For 3 months.
Yeah, they're back. Well, it's only been like 7 hours in universe. It's only been like
even before then, they're like, yeah, we want to go train over at our respective countries. So it's like I'm pretty sure they're like I'm pretty sure they got a late flight or something, and he couldn't make it on time or something. Oh my god, there's a funny thing. There's such a funny thing later.
Well, I mean, they were, if you remember, when they were about to go to Sanctuary, they straight up were just going to leave Shun because he was taking too long. They were about to be like, oh,
they're like a Mexican mom. It's like, if you don't get out here by in 10 minutes, we're going to leave without you.
I told you 9:30.
Oh, Bencast knows exactly how that goes.
I know what you're talking about.
You're running out of I'm coming with the toilet paper, like a toilet paper coming out of your butt. But yeah, the Jobber scenes are here. They brought Sayori's Starbucks, and I wrote this down because this is specifically for me and Conrad Furry because we watch a dub. I forgot how silly Geki's voice is in English. He sounds to me like because you watch Futurama in English.
I've seen clips of it in English, so I kind of identify their voice.
So when Richard Nixon comes on, he's like, oh, he talks like that, like, oh. That's how he sounded like. He's like, oh yeah, we went back to our training grounds.
Geki is like number 3 husbando for this series, so you're pressing the wrong button, sir.
But yeah, it's like that's like the way he sounded. I couldn't stop laughing. That's the first thing I was like, oh my god, he sounds like fucking. He sounds like Billy West trying to do Richard Nixon on Futurama, whatever.
I mean, I literally have written down all of the losers and also Geki are here.
And then
I love it.
So I think they say something to the extent of like, yeah, like all of us together took an oath to take care to defend Athena when they got there. And it's like, so the Steel Saints didn't take that oath?
No. the Steel Saints are like, taking care of her dog, making sure that it gets on walks and stuff. They're doing the practical stuff back at the mansion. Dusting the furniture and the knickknacks. Yeah.
So, but it's interesting to see. Like, it's a good primer to remind us like that these characters still exist, and we got to see them do a lot of their moves. And one kind of like threw me out of the loop. I forgot Nachi. He's Wolf, right? I forgot his move. His move is called Dead Howling. Like, that's fucking metal. That's my new fucking metal band name right there.
So Lionette Bon, is he Lionette in Japanese? Like, is
yes.
that
yes?
Because it looks like one of those like shrine dogs.
Yeah, it looks like King Caesar.
His helmet does. I didn't notice that until now.
Yeah, it looks like King Caesar from Godzilla. It's like it's one of those Okinawan lion shrine guys. Guardians. Yes, but it's supposed to be the lion. It's supposed to be the lion. Like that's what they officially, like, if you look constellation wise, that's what they call the lion constellation.
I was just wondering if it was one of those instances where like it wouldn't be a reference that English speaking people would get, so they changed it. But it just straight up was Lionette. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I got to see them do, and like and so they basically clean house, and they're pretty much like hey, thanks for coming thanks for coming to our rescue, and cut back.
But we need to. Benha said that he had strong feelings about what Moo did, so I want to hear that before we get too far.
Okay, here's the thing. Wanna guess what my answer to this is gonna be? Otoe, my old friend.
Oh, no.
I've come to complain from you again. Because guess what? All of this is filler. Well, no, I worded it wrong. The thing with Moo, up until this point, has been filler. Yeah, I actually had to check this out again because I was having trouble remembering exactly, because I remember that I had like a problem with this as well when I was a kid. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Moo? Why the fuck did you leave Athena alone? Didn't you say that you were gonna protect her, you asshole? And it turns out, in the manga, Moo never stays by Saori's side, and Tatsumi's there from the very beginning. Actually, he gets out of the plane along with them. And once Saori gets attacked, they immediately start rushing up the 12 temples, and they charge Tatsumi with taking care of Saori. So up until this point, he has been there with her. And after they talk with Moo in the manga, he never goes to Athena. He stays in his temple, goes to Aldebaran, and then returns to his temple. He never goes to her. So, okay, that's criticizable as well, but at the very least, it's consistent with the fact that he never went there in the first place. Mm-hmm. And again, this ties with the thing that I had already said, that Moo believes that this is a test. Like, if Athena really is the goddess of war and she is to see them through, like, kind of, he doesn't mention this, but like, it makes sense in the future, like foreshadowing, like, against Hades, if she is to overcome that challenge, then she has to prove herself now. So that's why he does not intervene. Still an asshole move, but at the very least consistent. Here, it's like, what the hell are you doing? So yeah, like, Moo leaving her never happens in the manga. And Tatsumi is there, and once the base soldiers arrive, like, he starts fighting them, he gets overrun, and then the Bronze Saints arrive. The secondary Bronze Saints arrive. So up until that point, like, that's like my biggest nitpick, because the show makes Moo look like a fucking asshole.
Yeah,
like I said, it was just an excuse for the Bronze Saints to have like a moment where they got to shine for a second there, because it would be kind of lame if Mu went and just like backhanded these little nobodies into oblivion, and then the Bronze Saints show up late to the party. Like they needed to be able to do something. And I mean, like, not to be too big of a pervert, but I am. But like Lionette's like thigh crush where he like squeezes the man's head to death with his thighs. I was like, that made it worth it for me. Like I can overlook Mu being an asshole for that part right there.
By the way, I have a bit of trivia regarding Ben, Lionett Ben. The moment that he says his attack in the manga, he says, "Oh, finally, my first line."
Oh no!
Because Ban in the entire story originally had like 3 lines. He had said like 1 line prior to this in the manga, and then that because I remember I was saying like, why the fuck did they erase like his first line? It's because in here it says, oh, this is my first line, so they corrected that in the final edition, and this is the first time he actually speaks.
That's funny.
Oh dang!
I always thought like not to be too far on a tangent, but I always thought that those other bronze armors looked really cool, and I was kind of sad that they sort of got wasted, by just I wouldn't say they're filler, but they're just characters that don't get revisited as much as I would like them to. So it's
if they are revisited, it's always like, oh, they're there to get killed.
Yeah, like here's the thing, and Kurama has said this as well because he hasn't really gotten to too much detail about the other 4, but he did mention Jabu originally when he was like designing the story. Jabu was originally meant to be part of the core group, like it was supposed to be like not 5 characters but 6. But Kurumada like thought twice about it because Jabu has like a personality that's extremely similar to Seiya. And he thought that would not like fit the story and the dynamic between them, so he decided to move him to the secondary group. And there's an interview where he says that to this day he sometimes questions if he did right, but he thinks that in the end he made like the decision that worked best for the story. And Kuruma has been is a guy, I've said this many times prior, but Kuruma is a guy that in his stories, like it's a good and a bad thing depending on the way that you want to look at it. But in his stories, if a character or if something or someone does not fit the story that he wants to tell, he does not use it. Like if he makes a character and they never appear again in the stories because he did not find a use for them in the story that he was trying to tell. So it's kind of a shame because in the end the secondary Bronze Saints group gets relegated quite too much, but that's the way Kurumada writes.
I'm not a Jabu fan, but that would have been interesting to see. And I know that you said that Kurumada felt like their personalities were too similar, but I think that like the fact that Jabu is like so like unquestionably dedicated to Athena, like willing to walk on hands and knees for her, quite literally. That would have been a funny like juxtaposition to Seiya, who kind of butts heads with Sayori more often in the beginning. But then as the series goes along, they kind of had that like romantic tension. But Jabu obviously wanted to be like the romantic interest. So that would have been a cool story to see explored, in my opinion. Although now it would be a little bit cliche, but back in the day that still would have been a little bit more fresh and new. But I mean, I'm glad the story ended up the way it did, but I just feel like those other saints could have done something in the story.
I was gonna say, like, correct me if I'm wrong too. Correct me if I'm wrong too, because like this is like with concerning Jabu and his stance in the series. If he would have been part of the main cast, he would have been Iki's replacement. Am I correct?
No, like Iki would have been part of the core story as well. Like it would have been 6 protagonists.
It would have been like the 5 core Sentai team, and then Iki as the.
Oh my god! Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that would have been the dynamic, I think.
Yeah, that's already kind of the dynamic that it is because Iki just kind of comes and goes, and he's viewed for a good chunk of the first arc as being much more powerful than the other 4. And so he comes in like times of extreme duress, and that's kind of like the 6th Ranger trope from Sentai.
Yeah.
Again, this was like before that existed, because I'd say Sentai existed before Saint Seiya, but the 6th Ranger trope didn't start until like the early 90s with Z Ranger. That was the first real, like the first real instance
and that was
of it being an actual part. Yeah. There had been other 6th Rangers in the past, but they were all like kind of minor supporting in and out kind of roles. This was the first time that a new core cast member was introduced midway through, and it became a staple to the series. And I think that had that been an existing trope before, that might have been the way Kurumada leaned, because this show already lends itself to a lot of existing Sentai tropes. And I think that might have, like, if Saint Seiya had come out 5 years later, that might have been, the direction that it leaned in. You never know.
Yeah.
Probably, because I do remember that seeing an interview where Kurumada apparently took inspiration from, like, he's from the 70s, like the rock bands of Japan of the time, and they tended to be like five-man groups. That's where he got that dynamic. Because even though there weren't five, like he had kind of like that dynamic in his biggest hit, Ring ni Kakero. So it's something that kind of preceded that with his original like great hit, and he just like adapted that to Saint Seiya when he was writing this story.
All right, so okay, let's go. Let's take it all back. Is there any other thoughts on what happened? Any other thoughts you wanted to say on Bancroft?
Let's move forward with the fight against Milo.
Yeah, let's go to Milo.
Yeah, so we cut. So after successful fight, basically we Milo just like breaks out of the things like, really? You think a piece of ice would take me out? And he starts, and then he proves his strength by hitting. He starts hitting with a scarlet needle. Starts giving him like wicked wounds all over his body. And
so I have a question about this fight. Because I had a memory in my head, because it's been a long time since I've watched this arc all the way through. Like, obviously there's bits and pieces that I watch more often than others, but like start to finish is the first time in a long time that I've watched this arc through. For some reason it got stuck in my head that the reason why the poison wasn't as effective on Hyoga was because he could he was like lowering his blood temperature so that it didn't spread as fast. Was that was the fight with Hydra though, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think I was swapping the two around because I was waiting for that explanation to happen.
You probably were thinking about it because like Scorpion, poison, and that's how. And they mentioned poison, like the attacks of the Scarlet Needle. Yeah. They're not poison per se, but they function like a scorpion's poison sting. Yeah. So probably that's the reason you got that in your head. But yeah, you're correct. Like the reason why he was able to fight and defeat Ichi so easily and why his poison did not affect him was because he basically froze the poison the moment that it penetrated his skin. Like it was so cold using his Cosmo that the poison basically was not even able to enter his system.
Yeah, I was hoping that would reoccur here. I understand that it didn't because we had to get the senses dulled so he could unlock his 7th sense power, because that's kind of how they've all sort of done it, is by having like being forced into using it by losing their other senses. But I was really hoping that I was really thinking, not hoping, but thinking that he pulled the same kind of stunt here, but he didn't. He just kind of got railroaded for most of this fight.
Like, here's the thing. It doesn't get explicitly mentioned, but I think that would have been the case, and Hyoga would have probably been able to avoid that from Milo had Milo not been a gold saint. But that's like the thing, and that's what the fight is supposed to be. Like, Hyoga is not fighting just a regular bronze saint. He's fighting one of the most powerful characters like in universe. So that's why, let's say, even though pragmatically the technique would have functioned the same, it did not, because his opponent was much more powerful, which is something that the series tends to do. Like, even though you have kind of like the advantage, or why the hell this is not working, theoretically this should work against this opponent, but if it's a more powerful opponent, then if the Cosmo of the opponent is bigger, it doesn't matter if the technique is superior, so to speak.
So,
except for ice, because that's what happens.
so basically.
You okay, Ramses? You went super robotic.
Yeah, we didn't hear any of that.
Oh, okay. So,
now we can hear you.
Okay, so I need to be closer. So, basically after that, Milo goes Hyoga to attack him, and he freezes his feet, and then the episode ends.
Well, with Hyoga using his Aurora Thunder attack against
he like uppercuts the shit out of him, and it looks like Hyoga just like straight up won. It's these kinds of bait and switches that specifically Saint Seiya does that really annoyed the shit out of me sometimes, because the end of this episode is like so like overwhelmingly positive, and then like I know that we'll get to episode 62 in a second. So basically what's happening is that Milo is putting it's 17 stars of the constellation, right? It's 17?
15.
15. He's putting the 15. He's basically creating a constellation out of Hyoga's body. And he said that usually by 5, most men would tap out and either die or beg for their lives because they're in so much pain. But Hyoga keeps letting him attack, and he keeps using his Diamond Dust. And the Diamond Dust is ineffective, but he keeps using it over and over again. And Milo is punching more and more holes with his little fingernails into Hyoga. And then Hyoga, like, or Milo laughs and is like, okay, time for the final one. You're about to die. And Hyoga is like, are you sure? It doesn't look like you can attack me right now. And he looks down and his feet are frozen to the ground, which is funny to me because, like, they've always portrayed these Gold Knights as being hyper aware of everything happening around them and being able to move so fast and all of this kind of stuff, that it just seemed very uncharacteristic of them to be able to use such like a cheap trick to trick them. But yeah, so Hyoga decides to use this uppercut, and the episode ends with he's or a thunder attack, and he like punches the shit out of him, and it looks like he's won, and everything ends on this high note that's super awesome. Cut to literally 5 seconds into episode 2, and Milo's just like, actually, that didn't affect me at all, and it's like, come on, it's like, why did you have to do that?
We do have some comments here from Alex Ua from Twitch, not Twitch, from Twitter, in regards to episode 61. I think this is the last time Hyoga's ice ring attack worked. I wish there were more Tatsumi as Bokan. Hydra Ichi's weird looking with his pose, because I think he's like posing kind of like, like he's like kind of like he's doing kind of like a weird Bishonen like pose, like he's like the most beautiful man ever. But that's not. Both Unicorn and Uniliner have leg-based attacks, going back to what Conrad already said. And Milo must be good at acupuncture.
Definitely, without a doubt.
Any final thoughts on this episode, Furry?
This we kind of talked about it. I can't remember if it was on the recording or not, but all 4 of these episodes are such a weird mix. Well, this one not as much, but the other 3 are such a weird mix of like filler and story progression, and it just feels like some of these could have been cut down. This one not as much. This one didn't have as much fat to trim. It was really nice to see the other Bronze Saints again actually do something, because we know that by now there's while they're all Bronze Saints, the core 5 are definitely a step up from them, because they've been unlocking the 7 senses and been really put through the ringer with like the Silver Saints and now the Gold Saints that they've been having to fight over and over and over again. So they're definitely a step up from them. And yes, the Bronze Saints said that they went back and trained even more because they were so embarrassed by how poorly they did in the Galaxian tournament. But you could tell they're still a long way away from them. So it's nice that they were given something to do in this arc where we have people that move at Mach 37 million speed, and just have ridiculous. The power creep is pretty real with these Gold Saints. And a lot of this stuff, like talking about if they start fighting, they'll fight for like 100 years or something crazy like that.
100 days.
100 days, you know what I mean? But like, it's just there's a lot of exaggeration when it comes to the Gold Saints, so we know that these Bronze Saints are not ever going to be on that level. So it's nice that they had something to do. I know that sounds kind of like pandering to them, or like looking down or talking down to them, but like, what else were they going to do? I think it's Starbucks.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's the unfortunate thing. Any final thoughts on the episode, Benkas?
Yeah, I really like this episode in general. Fortunately, the animation still continues to be in charge of Araki and Himeno. The fight itself was really good. I really like the going back and forth between Milo and Hyoga. Like one curious detail, like the scarlet needle, the actual needle that grows from Milo's fingers. I should have mentioned this in the previous episode with it, but that actually is an anime original idea.
Oh,
Like in the manga, in this part of the fight in the Sanctuary arc, Milo doesn't have the needle sticking out of him, and actually, it's not until Hades where Kurumada decided to incorporate that into Milo's attack. So by then, in the manga, Milo gets the actual needle growing out of his finger, but originally it's just like his finger pointing at Hyoga. The needle itself here, like growing, it's an anime only thing, and I'm actually one of the things that Toei did right, and it's actually fantastic to see.
yeah.
I really like this episode. I really love the Milo versus Hyoga the fight, Even the next episode, though, I have a big gripe with the next one, but when we get there, I'll mention that.
Okay, yeah, because I think we all have gripes, but yeah, I enjoyed the episode. It was really fun. I like that. Like, I like that we're advancing a lot the story, both in the actual story itself and also behind the scenes as well, with like stuff that's happening with Athena, like what's going on with her as well. So it's good. It's a good glimpse into like what's going on, and also the fight's really good. But like, it feels like they're stretching out a little too much, and when we get to the next episode, it's gonna kind of finally come to a crescendo of like, oh my god, these guys are just like talking too much. So, but it's good. It was a good fight. It's a good fight so far, and I was really happy about it. So yeah, good episode. Episode 62. Yeah, Furry said it best, very beginning, like not even a couple of seconds later, he's just like, yeah, fooled you, and just gets out of the ice and just starts fighting, and then. But one of the things I noticed right off the bat, holy moly, the animation took a huge hit.
That's my gripe, and that's where I wanted to go with this. Like, it's so freaking baffling for a number of reasons. But the shell shock that you get from like Himeno and Araki's animation to then changing it to this, I used to joke back in the day that what happened? Did they leave the interns to make this episode?
Yeah, they just went on autopilot, like yeah. Just get in on time.
I mean, I have a theory.
Go on.
We talked a little bit earlier about how expensive animation was back. Well, it still is, but like how expensive it was. And if you notice, a good half of this episode is flashbacks that we've already seen, maybe even over half.
Right.
So this might have been like just a budget, like a cost cutting episode, because they needed
it's a bottle episode. It's a bottle episode, but they had to put in some new flavor.
And maybe they were just we kind of talked about like how things are typically grouped in episode, like groups of like 13 episodes and stuff like that. So maybe for this block they wanted to save some of the funds for something else coming up, or maybe they are just running low. I don't know, but or they knew that they were going to put so many flashbacks in this that it might look weird to have flashy animation next to some of the more less overtly beautiful animation that we had in the flashback. Mm-hmm. It could have been any number of things, but I do think that the extended flashbacks really had something to do with the drop in quality.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But there is one thing that they didn't have that they didn't skip on. That was the blood. I think that's where all the budget went. So much blood all over the place.
Quentin Tarantino, blood gushing like from freaking limbs and stuff. Like, it was intense.
Yeah, it was just like it was like I don't know, like you get this reference, Conrad. I don't know if you get it, Mancos, but he was gushing like Old Faithful. Old Faithful, for those of you who don't know, it's a geyser that just like I think every hour on the hour in Yosemite, it's like it just goes off like
Yosemite Park.
Hey, I got it right. I thought it was Yellowstone.
And one day that will explode and kill us all, like, or it'll erupt for real or something like that.
But yeah, so basically, he's gushing out one, and Milo's like, you're slowly losing your senses, and I'm like, you're going through shock. That's what's going on. You're not anything else. You're just going through shock, dude. Like that, like no amount of blood, no amount of blood, like no amount of cosmic bullshit can save you from the amount of shock you're going through at prison.
See, my feelings towards that, with him losing his senses, is it reminds me a lot of a problem I had earlier in the show. So if this is going back a ways, but actually we just mentioned it in the last episode, but when they were preparing to go to Sanctuary, it felt like the writers suddenly remembered that Shun didn't have a rival, because all of the other saints, like, Hyoga's rival obviously was going to be Kamu because of everything that happened with the Crystal Saint. Like, Shiryu had seen Deathmax and seen his cruelty, before they went to Sanctuary. Seiya had butted heads with Leo. So all of them were having these rivalries that you knew were going to be big fights going up. And Shun, they were like, oh yeah, Shun needs somebody. So let's just say that, Pisces went there and killed his whole family, like kill everybody he knew or whatever. And it just felt like a throwaway. This feels like a throwaway because everybody else's way that they got their seventh sense unlocked was a lot more organic feeling. Like, it made sense with Iki because like that Iki's had already been so focused on mind games, and to have the mind games turned around on him, and then Seiya always does things through brute force, and Shiryu organically a long time before we even started to talk about the seven senses had already lost his sense of sight, so he had already started strengthening his other senses. Everybody else felt supernatural with how they got to their seventh sense. This felt like they just needed him to have this seventh sense unlocked. Like it just felt like they were just like, he's got to do it. We got to have it happen to him. So let's just go ahead and he gets poisoned, and the poison takes away his senses or whatever. Whatever. It didn't feel as organic or as like plot related to his development as the other ones, and because like you said, and maybe it's just because he's the last one and everybody else had already done it, and now I'm like, you start to see the patterns of, okay, yeah, they lose all their other senses and they have to rely on their seventh sense, and you could see that pattern starting to emerge by this point. So I don't know if it was the pattern of it or if it just really didn't feel organic, but this felt kind of like the laziest attempt to unlock the seventh sense, in my opinion.
I actually kind of want to counter that with something that I was gonna mention later, because okay, I have to touch upon a point. Like you know how like eventually after like Mila starts having Hyoga starts having like his midlife crisis, and he starts having like the 10th billion flashbacks. Then they got to a scene where like Kamyu is watching him right from the Aquarius temple.
God, I wrote down something about that. I wrote down here because he says, "Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me, Camus?" Like, look what your student's doing. I wrote down here because it was Bill saying as I just wrote down muffle ranting.
Yeah, but like here's the thing. And here's like I think where there's that dynamic of Hyoga and Kamyu that gets very, very affected, in my opinion and in my view, because of the Crystal Saint. Remember that the way that they decided to handle this in the TV show is Toei decided to give Hyoga a master out of their own fucking ass because Kurumada hadn't given him one yet, and they decided to embed the character. Then Kurumada decides that no, like he already knew that a Gold Saint was going to be Hyoga's master, teacher. So, but that information, like he hadn't told that to Zoe, and they took their own decision. Then he makes, originally it was Milo, but then he changed it to Kamyu, and Kamyu ends up becoming his master. And there's a flashback in this fight in the manga where we see Hyoga arriving at Siberia, and Kamyu asks him, "Why do you want to become a saint?" And Hyoga answers him, "Because I want to be able to save my mother's body that lies in the bottom of the ocean. I want to become strong to be able to do that." And Kamyu tells him, "Is that your reason? That's a selfish reason." And then he starts like trying to guide him to become a better person. And that's like the point that kind of pushes Hyoga to be able to achieve the seventh sense. Like he gets that introspection of what Kamyu was trying to do that also gets mentioned here in the anime, but I think that it doesn't have the same weight because of the whole fucking mess with the Crystal Saint, and they just flash back to the Lyra Temple. But the Lyra Temple is an extension of what Kamyu is supposed to be for Hyoga. Like they leave aside the emotional the more deep emotional connection that he has to his master that is in the manga, but it's left out here, and it becomes kind of muddy, and I think that kind of makes the viewer lose weight in the anime.
Yeah, and I wrote because it seems like he seems to be always ranting about like, he's my master's master. I gotta respect my master's master. Like,
yeah,
I wrote down here, shut the fuck up.
It just makes it feel really convoluted that they had, because Kamu is just in the manga, he's obviously heavily invested in Hyoga because that's his disciple, so it makes sense. But they had to find some way for Kamu to be so heavily invested in the anime, and it just feels very convoluted, like very needlessly complicated. The way they have to explain it every single time, and it's a little obnoxious, and honestly,
and that's the fault of Toei, because they shot themselves in the foot by deciding to do things before Kurumada, and then Kurumada's like, "Fuck you, I'm gonna do my story the way I want to," and then they had to do all this convoluted mess in order to make the story have a little bit of sense, and then they end up creating these disasters in my eyes.
Yeah, and the worst part is like you hear like during the fight, like during this entire episode. I know we're going all over the place, but believe it or not, here's the episode summary.
Hold on, but before that, can I say my idea that would have fixed this? But while we're on this topic,
what?
Yeah, because what they could have easily done if they just a big chunk of this episode, like we talked about, was the flashbacks where we flash back to the fight with Kamu and Hyoga, and they show it almost in the entirety. It's very long and very annoying because we just seen this recently, and even if you were watching this week to week, yes, it happened a couple of months ago in that span, because I think it was about 12 or 13 episodes prior that this happened, but it's still fresh enough that we don't need to see it beat for beat. What they should have done instead is shown a flashback that just kind of shoehorned Kamu into Hyoga's
it's not a bad
backstory,
idea.
where yes, the Crystal Saint was his trainer, but Kamu was still there, still some kind of authority figure, still saw some kind of promise in him. It would have made the whole point with Kamu knowing about his mom make more sense and be more relevant in the moment, because yes, he could have found that out from the Crystal Saint, but it would have been better if he had known of his own accord from being there, like he did in the manga, like he knew that in the manga. I mean, if they just had used that flashback time to just, I understand it would have been new footage and would have beat the purpose of them making this kind of a budget episode, but just to have like a flashback where it established that all the three of them were in the same place at the same time, they could have cut all of that you're my disciple thing out and just been like, back in Siberia, I saw that potential in you and I knew you could be better than that. Like, gone that kind of route with it instead of just making it awkward. It was very awkward every single time they had to mention the Crystal Saint. It was just
one last thing, because like I want to blitz to, I want to kind of blitz this episode because like there's not much to this episode. One last thing, it's like he repeats the same thing twice. He says like he's I think he starts saying like, yeah, my friends gave up my life so I can keep on fighting, and he repeats the same goddamn line again with this footage. I'm like, oh my god, what is going on?
That's a budget episode, I'm telling you.
Yeah, so it's okay, but. So,
and it shouldn't be, because it's a conclusion to one of the most intense fights that we've had up until now. And to be fair, even though you see like this stupidly abrupt change in animation, which by the way we haven't touched upon two facts. It's so abrupt in this episode because we actually see the 3 fucking styles in drawing for this episode, because not only do they change the director for this episode and the style is completely different, but we have the flashbacks of the previous episode, which has the Araki style, and then we also have the flashback to the Camus fight, which has a different style. So it's 3 different styles in one episode. And when I was watching this, like, what the hell? Like, this is inconsistency at its finest, like in terms of art direction.
Okay, so I'm just like I think it's like at this point the horse is already dead. At this point, it's well beyond dead. It's already we're essentially hitting glue at this point. So I'm gonna give a quick summary of the episode. Summary of the episode is basically what Hyoga did was no use, and then he starts taunting Yoga with an Antares attack, and he hits Antares. Hyoga hits all of his star points. So all of his star points or all of Hyoga's star points?
Hyoga hits all of Milo's.
Okay, points. So he hits the Uno reverse and hits him back with all of his abilities. Awakening the 7th sense, he's like, shit, this kid's got it. And he just he pretty much like does something to it. Pretty much like jams his finger in his chest. He's like, go, you won this fight fair and square.
Well, what happened? In my opinion, what I interpreted to happen was more so that he saw the intense drive in him, and he was like, because I have it in my notes, and he's like, you know what? Maybe these little shithead kids are onto something. Like,
yeah,
because the way they hand wave away the Gold Saints following the Pope instead of obviously, Athena, like she's very obviously Athena, is that they've been kind of not necessarily brainwashed, but just told ad nauseum over and over again that that's a fake Athena, that's a fake Athena, that's a fake Athena. And so when Milo saw how like Hyoga was ready to literally spend his last breath defending Athena, he's like, maybe they're not full of crap. Maybe I'm the one that's full of crap. And then he decided to save him by like hitting like a point in his body that stops all of his bleeding. That's a scientific revelation I wish that would have continued over, into the real world, because that could be helpful. But yeah, he saves his life basically because he has a turn of heart, and I think by this point, and again, like whenever we did the CGI show, I had this theory that they really with Death Mask and potentially Saga being the outliers, they really have this shift to where they realized how much people like the Gold Saints and want to make sure that they are redeemable. And so I think like that they really wanted to drive home the fact that Milo is not a bad person. Milo is just a loyal person.
I
And
always thought he was more of an asshole, to be honest.
I think that he was just incredibly, because like once he realized he was wrong, he fully admitted that he was wrong.
That's
And
true.
Yeah, that's actually something that I wanted to touch upon. The fact that, okay, leaving aside the animation aspect of the episode, which I think is the biggest gripe with it, the story itself, because the fight itself is really good. The fact Milo actually looks very down upon the Bronze Saints, and even in this, like when he's hitting Hyoga, and I think he just leaves Antares, like it's the only attack he has not given him. He kind of like in a very arrogant way says like, "I forgive your life. Get the fuck out of here. Like I'm allowing you to live. So leave the sanctuary." And Hyoga's like, "No, fuck you. I am fighting for my convictions. I am fighting for my friends. I am fighting for what I believe in justice and Athena." And like he is able to, and the fact that he gets to this point because Milo makes him realize, okay, leaving aside showing the entire fight against Kamyu, because I was actually checking the manga, and here's the thing: they also showcase the entire fight with Kamyu, but Kurumada does it in a brilliant way because he has like a panel where Hyoga is like, "Oh," like in a shocked state, and then in the background, like all the pages of the fight against Kamyu are in the background.
Oh, that's actually kind of. I think he's done that before, but that's kind of.
So yeah, it's arguable that showing the fight against Kamyu was plot-wise correct, but it was a very artistic poor choice. Okay, anyway, so there's that, and the point is that Milo makes Hyoga realize, like, don't you realize why you were frozen? Kamyu didn't want to kill you because he realized that you did not have what was necessary to go against the Gold Saints because of his emotional investment in his mother and his refusal to leave that aside. And when Milo like brings this up, Hyoga kind of realizes that it is true, and that's like the moment that Hyoga finally kind of starts letting go of that in order to be able to become a proper saint and not fight for his own selfish desires or not to attach himself to his emotions, but to grow beyond that. That's how he's able to achieve the seventh sense. And Milo, like saying, like realizing that he realizes that, and he's like, okay, fine, I will not treat you like a kid. I will treat you like a man. I will treat you like a proper saint, and I will fight with everything I've got, and we'll finish this with our full power. And in the end, even though technically Milo wins because he's able to deliver Antares, like he says, okay, but the fact that he attacked me first and I didn't even realize it, had I not been wearing my gold cloth, I would have died. Like the gold cloth is the only thing that stopped me, is protected me. And he says, therefore I admit defeat. So Milo is an asshole because he's very hot-blooded, but he's not arrogant. Like that's the thing that I love about the character. He can realize like when he's like in the wrong, and he also seeing Hyoga's conviction, that's when he starts to question, I think they are like you said, they're onto something. They may be right. She might be Athena, and that's why he decides to save Hyoga by stopping the oh god, what's it called when you're bleeding to death? Hemorrhage?
Yeah,
that. Okay, he stops that and he's like, okay, go, and I'll see what your conviction leads you. That's amazing. That's my favorite part of the episode on of the fight itself.
And that's why I say Milo is very loyal, because like he's, I wouldn't say blindly fighting for Sanctuary, but he has such an unwavering trust in Sanctuary, and I think that's what lends to his cockiness and kind of his jerky attitude. But he recognized that in Hyoga, that Hyoga was fighting with that same intense like commitment to willing to go to the death for this person, that I think that that's what made him recognize that they're not here just trying to bring down Sanctuary. They're fighting literally for their lives and for the future. And I think that's what hit him, that he saw a bit of himself in Hyoga. Like he saw that intense drive to want to be correct and to be on the correct side and to be fighting for what they trust in. That's the vibe that I got. Maybe I read a little too into it, but I really like Milo. Milo has always been one of my favorite of the Gold Saints. Even in Legend of Sanctuary, I liked Lady Milo.
Yeah.
One of the few times where they changed a gender and it didn't bother me all that much. But yeah, I thought that he really saw a piece of himself in Hyoga, and that's why he went ahead and saved him essentially and started to buy into their cause.
Okay, so one last thing. I want to bring up one last thing before we go to episode 63 because I think we already summarized like our thoughts on everything. One last thing I want to bring up. So basically, we cut back to the Jobber Saints and he pretty much says he pretty much bring up Athena her staff, and yeah, weird things are happening at Circle K because of that. I wrote down here. It didn't occur to me at first what was going on, but I wrote down because in the dub I wrote down here because they say Tatsumi says to Jabu, I gave permission to Geki to use the plane, and I'm like,
Geki's got his pilot license.
Whoa. Well, that's a way to pay the bills.
Yeah, it's like what? Okay, so maybe
what took them so long getting there. Geki had to go to flight school. It all makes sense.
So yeah, exactly what I wrote down here. Yeah, wait, Geki knows how to fly? Because again, the dub kind of implied that. I'm like, wait, what? I'm pretty sure they meant to say go get something from the plane, but I think I don't know. Maybe something. I guess they floated up and they just left it to use the plane. I'm like, okay.
That was episode 63 though. With the
he gets in 60.
62, they mentioned that he's gone, but he doesn't come back until 63 because I have a specific note about that in my notes and I'm looking at it.
But yeah, they say that line. That was like the line and like for me, because I was like, oh my god, like when did he get his pilot's license?
Yeah, because
they should be giving a kid that young a pilot's license to start with. But yeah,
he was like a full-grown man. Like that, they did not draw him like a 16-year-old kid. Like that is a man.
They didn't even card him once.
Yeah, he does not get carded when he buys alcohol. No.
Okay, so very quick, 1 minute thoughts, everybody. Conrad Furry on this episode. Go.
Too many flashbacks.
Pinecas.
Good episode, but with too many details that are unlikable.
Yeah, same thing here too. It's like they talk too much. Then this is supposed to be a really impactful fight. You know
what they should have done is they should have taken out all of the flashbacks from that episode, and then instead had weave in the events that happened in episode 63, taking out the flashbacks from episode 63, and just made one episode out of the two, where it's going back and forth between the Milo fight and what's happening in the as they're approaching the Sagittarius temple with the armor and everything. That would have made a much more solid episode going back and forth without all of the freaking flashbacks.
All right, so yeah, so that's episode 62, 63. Athena gets her staff back. They come back with it, but then it summons the Sagittarius clock, and it occurred to me like, wait a minute, these guys haven't seen this clock in this way. They only seen it in the fake style. Because they're kind of mesmerized. Like, where's that cloth? I'm like, oh right, they have not seen the Sagittarius cloth like that.
Oh, has it been when it gets restored to its
to its original form? Because they were using the one
like constellation form.
They only seen the one that looks like a clunky piece of armor. But now it's like they question like, what is that cloth? I've never seen this cloth before. Like, right, I haven't seen it like that. So that's interesting. It's like. That's interesting that they see the clock like that and they kind of like have that reaction like, oh right, like it's kind of interesting reaction. So all the clocks are starting to have a reaction to it. Moose starts to have a reaction. Adebaran has a reaction. And I wrote down here because last time we saw Ioria, he was taking Cassius's body and he's suddenly back at the sanctuary.
It's been an hour. That's plenty of time for him to be like, sorry, your boyfriend died, bitch, and then head back to his house. Like, that's plenty of time.
Yeah. So
he just threw Cassius' body in the woods and just came back.
They threw him to a ditch.
No, he puts him on Shina's doorstep, rings the doorbell, and runs away.
Oh no. Oh,
your problem now, sorry.
And then so basically and then we got another thing that I was completely confused, and maybe Benkas and maybe you, Conrad, can help me. It cuts to
we lost
to men. I was like, when did this happen? And so everyone's having conniption fits. Even the Pope started having conniption fits. He's starting having really down. The Pope was having a major case of schizophrenia. Like just having
that was a straight up panic attack. because I
Yeah.
do this all the time where I invent scenarios in my head that will never happen, and just every person that I've ever trusted in my life appears in front of me and says that I'm a loser. Like, I've had these vivid imaginings before. Like,
Oh shit.
man was having a panic attack because they were getting a little too close to his chambers for his liking. He thought for sure that Aldebaran was going to stomp them to death, 7 hours ago, but they're
Yeah.
still trucking.
Mm-hmm. And then basically the Seiya, Shiryu, and the corpse of the quote unquote corpse of Shun, they make it to the temple.
Oh yeah,
And
Shun's still quote dead.
so after that, so basically after that, they see the Sagittarius cloth had to it, and it tries to shoot Seiya. That's how the episode ends. If I skipped out on anything, I didn't. That's how the episode goes, guys. Your thoughts?
Too much
Let's
filler.
start with you. Too much filler.
Here's the thing. Okay, I want to make this point until the next episode because basically that's what it is. This episode and the next one, you could have made just one episode to be able to follow the story and the plot of the plot without all the things that they added. But they needed pacing and they needed to add filler as well as flashbacks in order to be able to proceed. Like the thing with the gold saying the gold clots resonating, that is in the story. The fact that, but here's the thing. Here's an interesting fact. In the story in the manga, like when Tatsumi sent Geki for the plane, he didn't just bring Athena's scepter. He also brought back the gold cloth of Sagittarius. In the manga, she actually brought it with her in the plane, because in the manga the cloth never went fucking around into the ocean by itself. It remained consistently in its cloth box, which was close to Athena almost the entire time. It was a way of it's one detail that always gets forgotten about people and that they tend to ignore. Like Ayoros in a way was always protecting Athena because the cloth was always near her. It never got. They never did the thing in the anime. You know how there are a lot of episodes in which, oh, we gained this part, we lost this part. Oh, now we gained this part, we lost this part. That never happened in the manga. So okay, but the point is, the cloud arrives and then they have that resonance, right? And like now, here's an interesting thing. Like this is the first time we see the clots of Capricorn and of Pisces. Those were the only two gold clots left to show. And they made their appearance here first before they actually appear with their owners during the dream of Saga, which by the way that's filler.
I remember that because we talked about that during the CGI show. Because remember, Aphrodite shows up really early in the CGI show.
Oh yeah,
and we talked about that, about how he doesn't it's the mid 60 range where we even get a glimpse of him. In the original and in the manga. So I remember you talk about that.
Not even mid-60s. I think we're in the 70s when we get to see him.
Well, we're mid-60s now. We see his cloth, is what I meant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the first time that they actually appeared on the show, and also in the manga, because they don't show Kurumada doesn't show their faces, but he does show the clots and the how he draws the eyes blackened, but the mouth and the nose, he did that. And so that was cool. I have mixed feelings about the nightmare scene. I really like the scene itself, but I cannot stop seeing it as filler. I'm just gonna say that despite it being filler, I liked it, but it's a very weird thing that they decided to do, because up until now, he's the Pope, which quote unquote we still don't know his identity. Wink, wink. but he's never been shown to be afraid of stuff. So I found it bizarre that they went in that direction, but it was an interesting way to show it.
Well,
but yeah, that would be.
In my opinion, it was to illustrate the Gemini, the traditional traits of a Gemini, because there's the confident side and the less confident side. I understand that there's also literally two saints, two Gemini saints, so they do it that way also. But I just assumed it was because Geminis are the twins, and they're polar opposites of each other in most depictions. So I felt like that was his insecure side coming to the surface, as opposed to the normal confident one that we see most of the time.
One of the things I find interesting during that panic attack is that this is implying that his own plot is revolting against him. If we're to imply everything.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I thought that was kind of funny. But did anybody else get the vibe? So for those who haven't watched this or haven't watched this episode in a long time, The animation style for this segment is a little bit different. It's got like more texture feeling to it, and it's a little bit more like they animate it in a different way. It's hard for me to put into words, but it's so that you know that this is like not actually happening. And it's
Yeah,
like some
they,
kind
they
of
put
dream
they put
state.
they put a filter on the camera.
Did anybody else feel like the animation style almost looked reminiscent of that new pilot that Ramona found, the American Saint Seiya? Like that's the vibes I got from that scene, just the way that it was animated. Because everything was
I wouldn't be shocked.
clunkier and huh?
I wouldn't be shocked if they saw that footage first and they took inspiration from that to use for some of the animation.
I doubt it. I don't think that. I just think that it's a coincidence that the styles
Alright.
happen to match.
I definitely think it's a coincidence, but it just gave me that vibe because it had more muted colors and like more like scraggly looking people. Like it was just a different kind of animation style to differentiate that this wasn't actually happening. But it really gave me the vibes of that like Defenders of the Constellations or whatever it was called, Guardians of
Into
the
the cosmos.
Cosmos. Yeah, it was very strange. Which, by the way, that's coming out soon. So part
Yes.
2 of that. I mean, so I'm pretty excited to see that too.
So like, that's going to be another thing we can dump on the next episode. Oh boy.
I was about to say, thankfully it didn't come out today where we had to like panic and watch like a 3-hour documentary first.
Yeah, but at the same time too, I would like to see it, but not right now in the middle of recording. But regardless, Becca, your thoughts? Oh wait, you said your thoughts, but any further thoughts?
Just interesting episode. Too much filler. That's my
Yeah,
review.
same here. It's like there's nothing really else for me to say. It's like
I personally kind of disagree a little bit with what you said, Ben Haas, about this episode and the next episode needing to be combined. I'm fine with them being separate, but as we're transitioning into episode 64, I just want to say that I hate this episode so much. I absolutely hate it, and it's because I am not a big fan of the trope of characters dying for a quick, cheap, like emotional shot, and then they immediately come back. And we
I thought you hated the fact that it was a ripoff of the Goonies.
No. No. I hate it, but I also hate that Sailor Moon took this concept and ran with it and made their entire finale based around this. But at least with it being the finale, it had a little bit more weight because maybe they wouldn't actually come back, even though we know that they were going to.
Yeah.
In the moment back, like if I was watching this fresh, I would think for a second that maybe they're not coming back because I know that this was the finale. But this is literally like the middle / like second third of this arc. They're not going to die here. It was like, sorry to transition so quickly in episode 64. 63 was okay. 64, I hate it. I hate it because one by one they die off and then immediately come back, and it just felt like there was no payoff. It felt like it was a waste of time. It felt so blatant. It was a rehash of the Ares temple. Because in the Ares temple, they didn't have anybody to fight, but they had a convenient reason why it was going to take them an hour to get through this temple with nobody to fight, because their armor had to be fixed. And that at that time I was okay with it, but this time they should have just ran through the damn temple and been done with it. This whole side quest of going in a cave that like was far underneath the Sagittarius temple was a waste of my time, and I did not enjoy it. And I'm sorry if that's controversial. I just don't like this episode.
Not at all. I actually kind of agree with you. When I mentioned that these 2 episodes should be one, I was talking about taking out the filler out of both episodes. Because here's the thing.
What is not filler in episode 64? Tell me what's not filler.
Episode 64 is this one we're talking about right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I transitioned us. 63 is done. Y'all said y'all's final thoughts, and my final thoughts listed in this.
Okay, what is not filler, and then we'll talk about that there. What's not filler is the Sagittarius cloth shooting the arrow and making like the impression that it's going to attack Seiya, proving that it didn't actually attack Seiya, but that it hit the wall. Shun coming back to his senses and Hyoga arriving, and the testament of Aioros. Those are the only things in this episode that are not filler.
Yeah,
it's I understand from a story standpoint of they're on a timetable and they want it to cut as close to that 12th hour mark for them to get to the Pope's chambers and confront, the mysterious Pope who we definitely don't know the identity of by now. We know that they want to cut it close to the very end of that time running out to make it as dramatic as possible. I think this was a lazy way to do that.
Yeah, I will agree on that. And
Because-
I will agree on that because we could have just put both these together and just made one coherent thing where it's like everything that was happening with like the Pope having his like panic attack and all that stuff could have been intertwined, and it could have just been a simple thing where it's like after he hits the arrow, we could have just seen the message and they could have went on their way for that.
You know what I wish they had personally done, because I put a lot of thought into this. Because my thing is, I don't want to complain about something if I don't have a solution for it. That's kind of always been my motto. Is that like I don't want to if I couldn't have personally come up with an idea to make it better, why am I complaining about it? But with this, I wish that they would have done something to the effect of like the armor taking shape as if there was a knight in it, but it was like the Cosmo, like the residual Cosmo or the spirit of Aeolus, testing them one last time before they get to these final 2/3 houses, if you want to count the Pope's chambers, that are really going to be the really heavy hitters. Because we've got Shura, we've got Aphrodite, and then we've got the real Gemini coming up that are.
And Camus, you forget Camus.
Oh yeah, Camus. I always forget Camus. Because he's already fought him, so I always forget that he didn't really fight him. Not the real, going through the house, but you know what I mean. But yeah, so he's got some of the really heavy hitters coming up. So if like the spirit or the residual Cosmo or whatever had tested them one last time, and like each one of them got to showcase that they're finally grasping onto their seventh senses a little bit more solidly and being able to use them a little bit more reliably. Like we had that bit with Seiya, like Seiya's had that development, but the other ones have not. Like they're still very much inconsistent with how well they can use the seventh sense. This would have been the perfect opportunity. They could have still wasted an hour of the in-universe time with them being in this temple, but this like they basically went on like an RPG side quest, and it was not entertaining like at all.
Yeah, I wrote down here. Yeah, I think I already just watched the Goonies one too many times and just started putting traps just for shits and giggles.
Yeah, it was just, and they all like, it was really obvious traps. Like the one where they walked, there was like the see-through floor, and they're like, "Oh, we can step on this." I was like, "Yeah," and then it's going to disappear, and then it disappeared, and they fell. Like,
I wrote down here because like Heal suddenly appears. Okay, so first things first, like Shun, Shun's awakened. It's kind of anticlimactic. They're like, "Oh, hey, Shun, you're back." And then
for somebody that they thought was dead, it was a very casual reaction to seeing him stand up.
And then also, Hyoga walks in and wrote down here, "I was nearly stabbed to death. If you're wondering, thank you very much, Hyoga." Like he's got these wounds. Like you guys show no concern, other than hey, you're alive. Like guys, I just got stabbed like 15, 16 times. For God's sakes, 17, 18 times. For God's sakes, let's not talk. Let's get this over with already.
They got time to be concerned about their friends. They all have to die one by one.
And then yeah, so basically, the Sagittarius cloth shoots a hole into the wall, and they go on a wacky adventure. Yeah. And one by one, they eventually meet their goal with by touching the gold cloth, and eventually the gold cloth, like they find themselves back, which I wonder is like, was this all a dream? What the fuck is going on? And then it shoots the arrow one last time into the wall, and the wall gives a beautiful eulogy to the saints that they've got to protect at the end, and they move forward. And that's how the episode ends. And yeah, I think it's weird. It's like I said, like there's like I know things happen in this episode, but it feels like there's not really much to comment on. It's like how we had that problem with during the Moon Sez, where we were talking about the last episode 12. And well, it was an episode. It was one of those things where like it's an episode, but there's not really much to work with. There's not really much to comment on, and I didn't really find it boring. It's more like it's there, I guess.
I actually have quite a few things to say about this episode and how it's one of the worst ones made in the series for a particular reason.
All right. The floor is yours.
Okay, here's the thing. Allow me to give you more context. And I swear to God that every episode I come with the mind that I'm not going to fucking refer to the manga just for the sake of it. I don't want to be that guy. But here's the thing, and I think this is why it's important to refer to the source material. The anime, when it comes to Saint Seiya, one of the biggest criticisms and one of the biggest, I was going to say misconception, but it is not a misconception if you've only seen the anime, because it's right. is that it's inconsistent and convoluted as fuck. And if you only watch the anime, you're completely right, because if you only would take the show for granted for what they're showing you, it doesn't make sense a lot of the times, because there's a lot of things that kind of contradict each other. There's a lot of things that are forced in that don't make a lick of sense, and it's like, why is this happening? And guess what? It's because that's the way that Toei decided to do the animation with its filler. Because if you read the manga, then okay, it still has some problems that can be pointed and criticized. But most of the story, it's extremely consistent, and there's a reason for everything. And this is exactly one of them. When they arrive to the Sagittarius house, when like, for example, Shun awaking, he doesn't awake just because of like, oh, I finally woke up. No, in the manga, like when Seiya is like shocked, like, oh shit, like I'm getting attacked by the cloth, he drops Shun, and the impact from falling off is like what wakes him up. It's like, oh, what the fuck happened? Yeah, he's like, oh, what happened? And then he finally wakes up. Then Hyoga arrives, and then they see that, okay, there's like, oh, what the hell happened? Why did the claw that decided to attack me? And they see, and then he's looking in front. He says, it wasn't attacking you. Look, and then they see the message of Iola's, and they read it, and because the message immediately appears, and then they start crying. But here's the thing. You could say that it plays out as well in the anime, the same scene, but here's where it's extremely different and where it lacks its most important aspect. Up until this point, even though the main characters have been fighting and almost dying for this cause, up until this point in the manga, they are not faithful to Athena. Let me say that again. They are not faithful to her. They actually hate her in the beginning. They walk out on her at one point in the story because they thought that she was a bitch, and because of all the hardships that they faced, and because they were being manipulated by her in the beginning, and they decide to come for their own reasons, not for her sake. They're not loyal to Athena up until now. This is the moment when they realize what Iola's sacrifice. This is the moment where they finally like get it, when all their struggles get a purpose and get a meaning. And this is the moment where the four of them like join in, like they cry because they realize the weight of Iola's will, what he's entrusting them with. He's entrusting them with the life of Athena. He's recognizing them as true saints. They cry about this, they realize it, and then there's 2 pages that are beautiful when they all join hands and they say that they will do anything to succeed, and that everyone is grateful for everything that's happened. They thank the life that they've been given despite its hardship, and they swear that no matter what happens, no matter, like, they cannot die. This galaxy that is full of stars, we were born to compete, to share this same era as brothers with the same blood. Remember, in the manga, they're actual blood brothers because they're all the kids of Mitsumasa Kido. So this is the moment where they gain the purpose and where they become true saints of Athena. And that gets cut off. That gets completely cut off. So it ends up becoming a boring episode, a completely filler episode, because all that context was taken away from it.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah.
At least it looks like the CGI show might, with its 3rd season that we're hopefully going to get, that supposedly may or may not be already confirmed, maybe some of that impact will be retained, because they did have a little bit more of that conflict of, not necessarily, like, they did eventually jump all on board, but like we got things like Hyoga's bit where he was a spy and he 100% didn't trust her for a long time and things like that. So maybe it'll be a little bit more impactful and a little bit more faithful, because the CGI show, as much as we rag on it, does have these bits where like I'll be completely confused, and then Ben Haas will be like, the reason you're confused is because this happened in the manga, and I'll be like, oh, I understand now.
Yeah,
so
and
something like that in the CGI show. There's still hope.
And that's why one of the things where it's like, I will never rag you on going on the manga, because I think that does provide a lot of good. So don't ever feel bad that you have to go back to it.
Yeah, it provides a lot of really good context for what we're seeing and what we were supposed to see, for lack of a better term.
So don't ever feel bad. So don't ever feel bad whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just that I know that, like, there's always those people that are like, oh, for fuck's sake, it's like, oh, read the manga. No, you don't have to read the manga. All I'm saying is that if you do, if you actually take the time to do it, you will see it in an entirely different light, which is what happened to me when I read for the first time.
I won't mention names, but someone I was talking to, a good friend of mine who listens to the show, really appreciates.
Oh, I'm glad.
So like, don't again. But that's all I'll say. Like, I won't because I don't want to dox them. I don't want to like say any more information. But I know a good friend of mine who listens to the show. They appreciate the juxtaposition. So it's like, don't again. If it's working for someone, it's working for this person that's listening.
I'm glad about it.
I appreciate it because like we all have our roles that we fulfill on the show, not to get too meta or nothing, but like Benhas is the like you're the
encyclopedia.
manga expert. You're the manga expert, and you kind of have a joint role with Ramses, who is one of the people that experienced the like initial wave of like Saint Seiya, and Ramses has that cool dual like he saw it in Mexico and like the hype in Mexico, and then saw like the lack of hype in the United States. And then I'm the one that had to play 30 years of catch up trying to figure out, this. Well, I guess 20 at the time that I was really starting to get into it, but like playing all this time catching up to find all the resources. So we all have different points of view, and you being so enthralled with the manga is at this point like an integral part of the show. So please, like echoing what Ramsey said, don't ever feel like if you bring up some of the comparisons that people are going to be annoyed. If they're annoyed, it's because they don't want to like. I don't want to say they're not real fans, but they don't want to expand their horizons beyond the anime. Like there's more. This franchise is not just an anime. We are reviewing the anime and discussing the anime, but it's so much more of a bigger picture that encompasses a lot more than just animation. So I appreciate it personally as well.
And not just that too. It's like it provides context. Because like there's that I think providing context is extremely important, especially with a show like this, where it's like Toy may not have the proper context on a lot of things, especially when, for example, we went on a roll talking about Camus and his role in the show. It's like if there's not a manga so we can compare it to, so we can say that like what's going on. I think people are going nuts with like Hyoga's like exposition, like I'm a master's master, like damn it.
You couldn't pay me enough to give a crap about my boss's boss. Like I like my boss. But my boss's boss, I don't give two craps what that man goes through on a daily basis. I don't even know his name.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because theoretically, he should be like, "The fuck are you? Why should I give a fuck about you?
Who even are you?"
So okay. All joking aside in here, because we were going way too long. Because like there's so much they had to cover and so much we had to talk about here. So, any final thoughts on this episode, or any final thoughts in general about the block of episodes that we discussed? Why don't we start off with you, Comrade Furry?
I remember the Milo fight being one of my favorites because Hyoga's always been one of my favorites. And I think that I kind of had some rose-colored glasses on because, like we discussed today, half of the second episode of the fight, because a lot of these fights are split up on 2 or 3 episodes, half of the second episode of the fight was flashbacks to things we had seen fairly recently. Like within the past 10 to 12 episodes, we had seen these events happen. And I understand that this is meant to be consumed on a week-to-week basis and not binge watch like we are. But even with us, like if you think of when we saw it even longer than a couple of months ago because we stopped reviewing this and went into reviewing the CGI show. So it's been a very long time since I've seen it, and I still felt like it was not needed. It was over the top, having the full scene, the full fight of him and Kambu in there again. It was just, I didn't see the point in it. But the fight itself, like the parts that we got to see were so good. I understand, people have to understand I'm not the most observant when it comes to the animation quality drops and things like that. So I didn't notice it as much and it didn't bother me as much personally. So that didn't take away from my enjoyment. But the pacing and the way that the fight was so chopped up really did. And then just episode 64, just throw the whole thing in the dumpster. Like, just take the very beginning where they walk in at the very end where they have the crying scene and tack that on to episode 63 and move on with your day. Like, that, it was not needed. But
other than that, thought. Okay.
Good.
Okay. Okay, here's the thing. The fight with Milo, it's flawed. Definitely, like now, why I'm able to see a lot of the flaws in the whole product, but I still really like it. Like, okay, again, disclaimer: me being a Scorpion and Milo being my favorite Gold Saint, it's a huge asterisk on that. But I still really like the fight itself. Like, if you take some of the the aspects of it that are negative about it, I still think that it's an extremely solid fight and it still has some really extraordinary moments. It's unfortunate that the next couple of episodes, because of the decisions that they made for the animation, it ends up becoming very tedious to watch. I'm gonna leave aside everything that I've mentioned prior in terms of context for why it's a wrong decisions. But if you just look at it at face value, it's two tedious episodes to watch because of all the flashbacks, because of all the filler. It has some interesting aspects. I actually do like the nightmare with the Pope, but it's still kind of like so. Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's some of the weaker aspects of the original show that, like, sometimes it gets like people tend to think like, oh no, the original show was perfect. No, it wasn't. Like,
No.
this is the perfect example of why it wasn't perfect. So it's just that, like, it's this is where the show doesn't shine as much, and it has like flaws that are worth like pointing and criticizing. But other than that, then we come for more good stuff coming later. So that's my review on this batch.
Oh yeah, like we literally could cut this. You can literally cut this episode down to 2 episodes. I totally agree with all the filler and stuff like that. But you know, and I'm with Benkos. Like, they were like, I'm with Benkos and I'm with Kamen Furry. I watched these episodes when I was a kid. I remember this was like, as I told the last episode, these episodes were like, these block of episodes were like the last 2 that survived like the Great Purge when I came here to the United States. So it was like the last remnants of like Saint Seiya from the time of sort of the before times. And I remember watching the hell out of it, and I guess I was so enamored by it that I guess I never really paid much attention to it, like with a more critical eye. That at the end of the day, as I watching these again, and like, oh my god, like I was so wrong about these episodes. Like the rose tinted glasses are off, and now I'm seeing these with a more critical eye, and like, oh my god, like this is just these people just won't shut up. And the flashbacks just constantly flashing back over and over. But yeah, I mean, you guys hit up on most of the points, and like I'll echo what you guys saying. There's way too many flashbacks. There's and the animation quality takes a huge dip in episodes 63 and 64, respectively, to a point to a very hilarious degree.
And it's like there's recycled animation is necessary. So like when I hear people complain about like, you know, the long transformation sequences in Sailor Moon, or Hyoga doing his full like swan dance before he attacks with diamond dust almost every time, like, and it's definitely there to fill time, but at least those are interesting to watch and visually appealing. A 7-minute flashback of something that you've already seen, which is mostly just 2 men talking to each other via the proxy of somebody who's been dead for 30 episodes, like, is just annoying. Like, to me, it is a waste of time.
All right, so before I head off, we have a few things here from Alex. He had still some more things to post about each of the episodes. Now, episode 64. I did not care for much for the film when I was younger, but I love it because it gets to do something. The color scheme so right when they all stand together. Also, last time we see the stock footage, the Shun's maybe a chain in the first version of his cloth. In response to episode 63, we see a shot of the shadows of the 12 gold saints. Pisces Saint doesn't have Aphrodite's hair. Was it confirmed at this point? Because at this point, is it possible that there were alternate plans for the Pisces Saint?
Oh, there's an interesting bit of trivia regarding that. There is actually, and you can find this online. There is, you know what a sete is?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. For maybe for those that don't know the term, it's a character sheet basically. It's like the designs that get done before the animation gets actually made, so that the animators have the reference to do their work. The original one for Aphrodite, this is before Kuruma. This was made to promote, guess what, the toys, but by Bandai. This is before the episodes where Aphrodite appears. And this is before Kurumada actually had a design for him. So they kind of like made this. There's a design of Aphrodite, and I think he had like a different name, like pre Kurumada establishing his actual name. I don't remember what it is at this moment, but like there's this buff tan skinned guy wearing the Pisces cloth because they needed a sete for the Pisces saint. So that's what maybe like that's the reason why he doesn't look like Aphrodite. They had that sete first, and they used it here before Aphrodite had a defined design for how he was going to actually look like.
Yeah, and I remember very specifically in the action figures that they even it went as far as the stuff that came down in Mexico, the official stuff.
Yeah.
That if you buy an official toy, like it had that Pisces with like his with the tan skin and like his eyes covered. He looks kind of buffer, in which that's not how eventually he ends up. But yeah, like in those it goes so far into that's what happens. So
It's basically the opposite of twink death.
oh god.
It was daddy death. The daddy became a twink.
So that's really interesting. That's like, and that makes sense. That tracks because like a lot of the toys were like kind of like were still in the process being made as the series was going. So I'm pretty sure a lot of it was like they're on the fly just to make up a lot of designs on the fly. Like, what do we do? It looks like a fish. What do we want with this? They just kind of engineered it from there.
You know who would make a good user for the sleek, feminine, aquatic fish saint? A big buff tan dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty then, guys. I guess we can edit right because like we were about to be almost 3 hours long. But yeah, this was a chock full episode. So if you're into like long episodes, this has like the most amount of content. I'm pretty sure the next episode is going to be even more hectic. So before we go, why don't we start with promotions? Conrad Furry, do you have anything you would like to promote?
No, no. I talked about this at length in Moon Sez. So if you are really interested, you can go and check that out at the end of that episode. But basically, Ancient Anime is not dead. I have a couple of things in my personal life that could potentially disrupt episodes coming out on a regular basis. So I am going to wait probably until April when some of these things start to resolve. So Ancient Anime. Again, I wanted it to come back last month, but real life gets in the way. I don't want to have another instance kind of like when I got sick where I get a few episodes out and then there's a really long span before you get anything else. So I'd rather this break continue than to have additional breaks down the road. So Ancient Anime at Ancient Anime Pod on Twitter and Instagram for updates when a solid confirmed date when that's coming back, but it will be coming back.
And even if you're not being idle either. You're here and you're also on Sailor Moon.
Yeah, and these, and I've talked about that before. I show up and talk, and Ramses does all the editing. Ancient Anime is 100% me. It's the whole show is me. The social media, the episodes, the editing, the planning, getting guests. It's all on me, and I don't have the mental capacity. Not that I'm like on the verge of a breakdown, but I don't have the mental capacity to dedicate X amount of hours to that every week at this juncture where I'm currently. In a month, that will almost certainly change. So that is still trucking along. Otherwise, you can see me on Instagram, which I've started using again. I haven't posted this week, but last week was a little bit hectic work-wise. Got a couple posts planned for this week. To post my collectibles and I've been fixing up dolls to donate to kids, which is my new thing that I'm working on in my local area, is to find dolls that are a little bit busted and things and fix them up just because I enjoy doing it, and then donating them back to the community so that children can have toys to play with and that are not like ratty, because most of the toys you see at like Goodwill and Savers and stuff like that are pretty ratty and gross. So I'm going to get them, clean them up, fix them up, and redonate them and let those kids have something nice to play with for families that don't have a lot of money. But you can see me chronicle that on my Instagram, and then my Twitter is at Kamen Furry. Just me, I don't know, talking about daddies and stuff mostly.
All these links here will be posted on our show notes. Bankas, anything you would like to promote?
Yeah, my Twitter account, which I use, is my personal Twitter account, but I share a lot of Saint Seiya related stuff, fan art, interesting trivia that I tend to find. Sometimes I post things that I include trivia about the manga or about the anime. And like,
and
yeah, you want to,
and what I like too is like a lot of stuff you discussed. It's kind of like complement to the episode itself. So if you still want to know more information, a little more of the backstory, because is always like posting stuff, and it's always kind of related to what we're doing in the episode as well. So
Yep. There's also my Instagram account, which I haven't posted anything in a while. I don't really post often. I'm working on the drawing, but I'm the slowest illustrator in the world. I promise. I'm actually close to finishing one illustration. It's a oh god, it's linked in my Twitter profile. Oh, my Twitter account is a Mexican Geek 502. You can find me there. And also, I'm working on some stuff. For unfortunately, like a lot of things have stopped me from being able to work on it forward. But once it gets close to completion, I'll finally announce what the hell it is. And one last thing, I did mention on the previous episode that I was working, even 2 episodes ago, I don't remember now, that I was working on the translation for Chapter 2 of Re-Rise of Poseidon. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to work on that. Some IRL stuff, and also dedicated some of my time onto other things have stopped me from doing that. But I intend to finish that as quickly as possible. I think that there's a translation in English already out there, but the one that I'm going to be making, I'll be posting it as soon as I have it. You'll be knowing about that.
As for me, I have a lot of podcasts that I do. I do Moon Sez with Kamen Rider Furry. We're gonna be having an episode 5. We're gonna be having a guest. We're trying to finalize if we're allowed to discuss the who the guest is, but I'm really excited for this episode. And then for the next couple episodes, we're gonna start having some special guests on that show as well. I'm gonna try to get more special guests as time goes on. I think what's gonna end up happening. I think as time goes on, I think it's gonna be me, Kamen Rider Furry, and a special guest going forward. I think that's gonna be really fun when we get to. There might be some episodes where it might just be me and Kamen Rider Furry again, but like for the most part, I want to start piling on the guests on there. There's another show called the Saturday Morning Squadron. Unfortunately, I'm in the same position where I am with LH Anime, where it's like things are kind of up in the air right now. So whenever we have time to record, we record. So if it's just pay attention to the feed if you haven't, and there's a new episode there, that means there's a new episode. I don't know when we're gonna be back to normal, but I do hope that we can. I do hope that we can find some sort of normalcy before that. You can find this podcast at www.scosmocast.com. Again, the address is scosmocast.com. I will be at Wondercon on the 24th and 25th of March. Please, if you're in the area, if you're in the Anaheim area or are interested in Saint Seiya, please come by. I'll be around. If you say the magic word, but you'll find out you'll notice the word say to me when you want to get something, because you get a special gift if you say the magic words to me at the convention. And when you do, hey, let's talk, and let's rap about things, and hey, let's talk Saint Seiya. I want to expand more. I want to expand more with the fans, and I kind of want to expand more with everything else. So if you're in Anaheim that weekend of the 24th and the 25th, come by and we'll talk. And I'll be helping out Scarlet Rhapsody. Scarlet Rhapsody, amazing people all around. I just can't express enough how much I love these guys so much as my best friends. So then, all that said, guys, we have to go. For Kamen Rider Furry, for Bangkos, I am Ramses, and I'm here to tell you to keep brain at Cosmos. I will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.